Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday. It's October the 14th, 2021. It's another Technical Alpha podcast. Glad that you could all join us today. If you're here watching us live on Twitch, welcome. If it's your first time, double the welcome. We talk about video games, movies, and TV, and all sorts of nonsense that might spin off while discussing movies, TV, and all that nonsense. Got another great show lined up for you today. And so, before we kick it off, let's ask the most important question of the week. Mr. Black, how was your week?
Jeez, man. It just kind of flew by. It's just been another regular week.
You blinked and it was over.
That's it.
And somewhere in there, you decided to get a baby face.
Oh, yeah. You know, funny thing is I had a meeting yesterday, and my face was a mess, and I had the wrong guard on my
Oh, it was a shaving catastrophe.
Yeah, and when I went zzz, I was like, oh shit, because I was in a rush, like I was trying to get it done like super fast, and my wife actually buzzed. Or I should say my wife, Kayla, since everybody knows who she is. Kayla
protecting
buzzed,
her name.
Yeah, Kayla buzzed Kai's hair, and she changed the guard. Normally nobody ever uses my clippers, right? So like it's the same shit. I don't really, and I didn't think, and they all kind of looked the same. And so when I shaved, I was like, ooh, okay. And then I had to shave the whole thing, and then I come out of the bathroom, and Kayla's like, ooh, I don't like it. I'm like, well. It'll grow back pretty quick.
What happened there? Yeah, I have like, it's never happened to me, but yet I still manage to get PTSD whenever I go into like, not when I like, so with my clippers, obviously nobody else in the house is using my clippers, so that's easy enough for me. But when I'm done clipping my beard all like to the same length or whatever, I still get like fucking, the scraggly shit, and so I've got a small shaper that has no guard, that you're just you're freehanding that shit. And every time I look in the mirror and I get in to start, I'm like, is this the day? Is this the day that I just, like, I sneeze or get an itch and I, like, fucking spaz, and it's just like, and the whole beard is just fucked?
Yeah.
It's like my worst nightmare, because I don't want to fucking know what I look like underneath this beard anymore.
I haven't been this shaven it's
been a very long time.
Years. It's actually been years. So it feels weird. Yeah, it'll grow back quick. I say this time, like next Thursday,
you'll be back to some semblance of normal.
Yeah, it's all right.
My week was another week, except for the fact that I turned 33 yesterday. Crested that. I'm proud to say that despite losing almost the majority of my hair, I still had enough to look in the mirror and say, you know what, 33, but you're not bald yet. That was basically my day. I woke up, I stayed in bed a little longer than usual, relaxed, wasn't in a rush, made breakfast, relaxed some more on the couch, didn't do dick, just on the couch, doing absolutely nothing, and it was glorious. And then Em actually wrote her beginner's driver test yesterday. To get her beginner's license. Wow. And so she wrote that and passed it, thank fucking God. And so that's done. That hurdle's over. Now we'll look for a driving school and all that stuff. But that happened while she was gone. I had one of my favorite dinners, which is leftover Thanksgiving, where we put everything in a casserole dish. Afterwards, in layers with the potato on top, and then butter, and you bake that shit the next day. So we had that, which is like one of my favorite things ever, and then followed it up with, of course, Mom's cake. It was a 10 out of 10 day. And with that, I had beer. It was a beer and my favorite meal and cake, and laid around and didn't do too much. And then I streamed for a bit. I didn't do anything fancy. Played some Monopoly, or the War Council Memopoly board. With Fox and Shady and Major and Zero, and then we played just some golf with your friends, that mini golf game afterwards. So just a nice relaxing day, nothing fancy, watch some Netflix afterwards at night, watch that Dave Chappelle special that the entire internet has fucking exploded over. And I was like, well, I better watch it before Netflix removes that shit. So I got on. I know they're not going. I know they're not going to, but but I watched it last night anyway. And so watch that and then off to bed. So that was it. Other than that, the rest of the week has just been kind of the same old same as well. Nothing particularly fancy. Got the review up for The Forgotten City, and now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do next. I don't know if I want to go and buy Metroid Dread, even though I wanted to before. I'm looking at, I swear to God, man, Game Pass has ruined me. Every time I look at a new game to review and it's like $90 after tax, I'm like, dude, is there something on Game Pass I could review by any chance? Like, is there something that just came out that I could maybe do for $0 instead of $90? Yeah, I'll figure that out. And otherwise, that's been it. We've finally hit true fall weather today after several days of extended July weather.
Yeah, like summer. Legit summer weather.
Legit summer weather the last couple of days. And enjoyed that. Em and I did get out to walk a little bit. I took some pictures. So that was nice. But now today, finally, it's that dreary, rainy October weather that we're used to. Still warm, way warmer than normal, but closer to the weather that we're used to. But Mr. Black, how about we talk about some video games?
Sure.
Or video game related things. First up, and that's why I said related things, YouTube has officially given up on the YouTube Rewind, Mr. Black.
About time.
I would say it was a good run, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
The YouTube Rewind was more of a reason for basically the entirety of the creator space to shit on YouTube's ability to understand itself every single year. And without fail, they fucked that up every single year. It was quite impressive. And of course, the peak of it was the Will Smith. It turned into a meme where it's like Will Smith. They got Will Smith to show up, and he used the fucking binocular things to look up, and then there's the bus in the sky, and half the creators in this thing nobody even knew existed. They didn't do anything particularly special. They didn't dictate the year for YouTube in any way, shape, or form. But it was just YouTube being YouTube, and I guess they gave up. They got tired of being flogged every year, and so they passed that. They passed that on and said, you know what, fuck it. And you know what? I bet you there'll be a couple creators that do their own rewind now instead of YouTube's.
Probably. Oh yeah.
And they'll probably be done better if I had to take a wild guess. But so long, YouTube Rewind. I won't miss you. Neither will anyone else. Despite the great news for Avengers, that's the game, not the movie franchise, becoming one of the top Game Pass titles this week. So when it launched on Game Pass, it rocketed up to the top. Thus proving that a lot of people won't go near a game unless it's free, or perceived free, the Avengers being the latest example of this. They've sort of gone and fucked it up anyway. So they said that they would never go down the route of, the whole microtransactions and pay to win and all that nonsense. And then they had this recent patch or balance patch that was supposed to tackle this whole concept of people feeling overwhelmed with the grind or whatnot, the experience grind and everything. And then ironically, it made all of that worse, where people were saying that it now is worse and it feels even harder to progress consistently, etc., etc. And then, of course, their solution was to then fill the cash shop full of experience boosters and character point boosters and other pay-to-win items to make up for that grind that they've now instituted. They did the classic, there's no problems, so we're going to create a problem, and then we're going to create a solution for it. And that solution is, you can pay us money.
Seems like a pretty good solution.
Lots of people do that shit. It's not been the first time, won't be the last, but I suspect as fast as Avengers became one of the top Game Pass games, it is going to almost just as quickly no longer become one of the most played Game Pass games. They didn't even get a few days in that spot before it all went away. But I don't know. For now, obviously, lots of people not particularly pleased with that outcome. Kotaku walked an interesting line this week, Mr. Black, when they ran an article that low-key promoted the use of an emulator to run Metroid Dread on the PC. So, the Nintendo Switch, because, let's be honest, it's about as powerful as my 4-year-old cell phone, is not the hardest thing in the world to emulate. And there's already an emulator, and it's been around for a while now, that does a pretty damn good job of emulating most of the Switch games that anyone would give a fuck about emulating. And that means that you can upscale to 4K, and you're getting 60 FPS instead of 6. And in general, obviously, a much better gaming experience where you're getting the same game. It's just that you're getting a better visual experience along with that. I don't think Kotaku intended to seemingly promote the emulation of a brand new Metroid game. However, that is unfortunately how it reads when you read that headline and subsequently most of the article. Despite that, of course, like any other time something happens in the emulation space, this kicked up a big discussion about the validity of emulating and what it really should be used for and what it shouldn't be used for and the legality of it and all that other nonsense. And at the end of the day, and we've talked loosely about our thoughts on emulation. I think we both stand in the same place for this, is that the actual act of emulating something is not illegal so long as you own the property that you're emulating.
Yeah.
So if you go out and buy Metroid Dread and you're like, this is dope, but man, would it ever be more dope if I played it on my PC at 4K and 60 FPS?
Yeah.
That's fine.
I mean, I look at it like, if you want to go ahead and buy, The Dark Knight on Blu-ray, and you want to hook it up to a $50,000 home theater system to experience it in all its glory,
exactly.
Go ahead and do that. I mean, you paid for the content, and however you want to optimize that content for your viewing pleasure or playing experience, as long as you've legally paid for it, what is the problem?
Yeah, and I think that's the general consensus on it. I think the gray area becomes when people are, and the biggest discussion point is around emulating games that you don't own, but maybe are harder to get your hands on. Like there's not very many copies in the wild anymore. Like some of the really old games that people might be collecting, for example, because they're so rare, things of that nature. And then of course the talk becomes about the preservation of games, because a lot of the companies that have made them in the past or whatnot, they don't have a viable means of actually preserving the ROMs themselves, or like Nintendo has literally now several times ironically taken ROMs off of ROM sites to use for themselves because they themselves did not keep copies of their own old games in storage for them to be able to pull their own ROMs. So there's like that discussion as well. Obviously, the emulating a game that you don't own or isn't at least, and this is just my opinion, or isn't at least to the reasonable person, something that you can get your hands on and purchase. You know, if you go to eBay and there's a game that you want and that game is so rare that it's $400 to buy the game, I could maybe understand just emulating the fucking game. But if you go on eBay and that game is like $23, just buy the fucking game. Just buy the fucking game.
Buy the game.
Just buy the game. It's not that hard to get your hands on it. Just buy the game. But yeah, there you go. But to Kotaku, you know, of all the reasons to attack Kotaku, of which there are many, this is probably pretty low on the totem pole for reasons, and so yeah, I wouldn't look too far into that. I don't think the writer was intentionally trying to promote emulating this illegally, so much as just saying that, hey, it's pretty neat. It's just come out and it runs at 4K on a computer. Because you know what? It probably looks pretty fucking dope at 4K on a computer, or at least a lot better than on a Switch. That's for sure. Speaking of Nintendo, Nintendo has thankfully corrected the issues with its upcoming N64 releases by providing 60 Hz for all titles, and this is more for Europe. We talked about this, was last week or the week before, where we talked about their releasing of the their upgraded service for their online, where they had the N64 games and the Sega games, and then for the European releases, or the European people that had the service, they were providing them the PAL versions that were like 50 hertz, and all the issues that came with that, even though at this point all of that shit that existed back then was completely superfluous and nobody wants it anymore. So Nintendo said, okay, fine, we'll give everyone the 60 hertz thing, and then for certain PAL releases and whatnot, we'll allow it to be an option if you want it to play it like that. And I think that is a far more reasonable approach than just hamstringing the entire European market with shitty PAL ports of your old games. So Nintendo, thankfully, correcting that I'll call it an error, I suppose. Best Buy. Oh, this is I can't. This it's not that it's spicy, but it is certainly interesting. This is probably one of the most interesting pieces of news this week. Best Buy has rolled out in the U.S. anyway. I don't think there's anything in this in Canada yet, but I think it just went nationally in the U.S. A new program called Totaltech, all one word for reasons that I'll never be able to tell you. Totaltech for $200 a year. It's U.S. $200 a year. That seemingly has exclusive stock for members of this program for big ticket items like PlayStation 5s, for example. So, this service comes with 24/7 tech support, 2 years of protection on Best Buy purchases, which includes Apple Plus Care insurance, which should be noted on its own is nearly $200 for the year. So this is ignoring the part that's a clickbaity title-worthy situation. I mean, this is not a program to sneeze at just for having that alone, especially if you're somebody that uses Apple products or buying them through Best Buy. I mean, that's a pretty good incentive right there. And of course, member discount prices. This is kind of just like Best Buy's own version of Amazon Prime, really, for all intents and purposes. Just slightly different membership benefits than Prime would come with. However, like I just mentioned as well, there seems to be exclusive stock list for members for certain items, and chiefly the one that was discovered first, of course, because everyone wants one, is a PlayStation 5. The exclusive stock thing, like that option or that part of the package, isn't listed anywhere that people could find readily. So it's not a perk that they've listed anywhere. However, despite that, they did send out and put up a member exclusive portal for PlayStation 5s, and the stock, of course, because it's limited so heavily, lasted for nearly 2 hours instead of a whopping 23 seconds. And so that is a substantially larger window for people hoping to get their hands on items that scalpers have been increasingly getting their hands on. Like last week we discussed also Best Buy, when they announced the restock of graphics cards last week, that there were 72 people lined out of one Best Buy, and 70 of them said they're resellers, and 2 of them weren't. So this is obviously, even if they're not announcing it as part of the thing, this would seemingly be a way for Best Buy to do 2 things. One, allow people that want to or are frequent shoppers at Best Buy to obviously get a fair amount of value out of the program itself. But 2 is to take some of the power away from the rampant scalping that happens, while also getting money themselves. Because they don't get any of the money when scalpers go out and sell the thing for 3 times the cost. But if scalpers want to spend the extra money to be part of this program, to get their hands on the exclusive stock, and then go ahead, they at least get some extra money out of it. And they also get extra money out of the people that are hoping to have a better chance of getting their hands on those same items that are so frequently scalped or bought by bots and other methods. But it is interesting that it wasn't really listed anywhere that people readily found as a perk. So what are your feelings on that? Just not just that part, but what do you feel about that? If that came to Canada, I mean, that's a $200 US. Shit, that's a $279 bill minimum in Canada. Maybe even more. Maybe even $299 in Canada. But yeah, somebody that uses Apple products, I don't know if you run their insurance or anything like that. But some people do. What do you feel about this Totaltech? Mr. Black.
I mean, I think the name's fucking stupid.
It's pretty bad.
I'm surprised they didn't pair it up with like their, their tech care thing that they do there.
The
at Best
Geek
Buy.
Squad
The Geek
stuff.
Squad.
I think that it may or may not be the part of the 24/7 tech support thing, but they don't really delineate or explain all that much about what that 24/7 tech support entails.
Yeah,
but maybe it does.
I'm not against this. I mean, I think this is perfectly fine. You can opt in or opt to not go in.
Yeah.
It's not really hurting anybody. You can make the argument, well, now they're going to hold supply for the ones that are paying, and then the public is the ones that's going to suffer. But let's be real, if there's anything that is of major value, this actually probably helps the public out a little bit more for the ones that are like really into the tech and stuff. Like, this isn't likely going to be for everyday people. I think they may upsell everyday people on this that are frequent buyers of Apple products. So they might say, hey, the Apple Care is going to cost you $100 or $200. Why not just get this total tech membership thing? You get the best of both worlds. It's another upselling feature. And then, if the latest and greatest tech comes out, you have first dibs at that stuff. So, I'm not against it at all. I think it's a smart play from Best Buy. And I'm sure that they've ran the numbers, so I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to really benefit from this, but it's probably costing Best Buy no money at all. Just they're getting the same amount of stuff and they're making more money. So I don't have a gripe.
No, I don't think there's anything to really gripe about here, because really, whether you I don't think the majority of people paying for this service are going to be doing it specifically for because other than PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and graphics cards.
Well, the scalpers are going to pay. The scalpers are going to pay.
Yeah,
right?
If they know they're going to 2 or 3x their money.
Oh yeah, easy.
Then they're obviously going to pay $200 a year to get access to stuff like this. And in fact, they might even open up multiple accounts under different names specifically for that purpose. But at the very least, it means that Best Buy is extracting more value out of scalpers, while also the people that aren't scalpers getting into this do objectively get some semblance of a better shot at obtaining these items, while also getting more benefits. Like you said, they're largely likely going to be upselling people on the two things, Apple and the tech support. And that will be, I suspect, the two major upsells for people. And there's a lot of people that do, because Best Buy expands as a company. I mean, sometimes people, I think, forget just how many things Best Buy sells. I mean, Best Buy sells a lot of shit. Best Buy's out there selling fucking appliances and shit. I mean, they've got a lot of stuff. They have a marketplace that extends well beyond Best Buy's own stock, and is similar to Amazon's marketplace in that regard, where you might be buying something through Best Buy and it's on their marketplace, but it's not coming from Best Buy. It's coming from another shop that has set up on Best Buy's marketplace. And it's been one of the ways in which Best Buy has kind of expanded its itself beyond just tech to keep itself alive and thriving as a company. And so having a service like this for people that frequently shop at Best Buy is probably not going to be the hardest thing to sell for specific customers that they're targeting. Like you said, they're not losing money on this more than anything. They're just using this to extract that extra couple of dollars out of those who either really want it, or the scalpers who want an even easier time, theoretically, an even easier time to get their hands on some of these products, which, judging by the supply chain in the world right now, looks like that shit's going to be running for at least another 2 years. So, Best Buy getting theirs. But there you go. Best Buy's new thing. That's only, to my knowledge, nationally in the U.S. I don't think they've expanded that anywhere else, but I'm sure they will be considering other markets as well with that. Especially, I'm sure Canada would be a market they'd be considering in the future. Next up, Call of Duty Warzone and the upcoming Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard, had their anti-cheat outline finally. So they teased this on social media a few days ago, and then they did like this really cheesy, hackers beware. It all ends this week. And then they put their announcement up, and they're like, hey, here's our anti-cheat. So the anti-cheat is called Ricochet, which is a very fancy name for an anti-cheat. Personally, I would have gone with Totaltech for my anti-cheat name. I think that would have been far better than Ricochet. It's a kernel-level anti-cheat similar to Valorant's, and the reason why that it's kernel-level and why you're likely to see more and more kernel-level shit in the future is because a lot of these hackers are running shit that requires kernel-level access to even detect in the first place. So your two options are kernel-level or get fucked. So they're similar to Valorant in that regard. However, they did go very much out of their way to state two things. One, even though it is kernel level, it only runs or operates when it detects one of these two games running on your PC. And if they're not running on the PC, it's not running. The second thing that they said specifically, and you'd have to probably, I'm sure somebody will go through a user agreement and make sure that this is legally, they're not trying to cover their ass in some other way, but they also said that it is only analyzing data through the PC at the kernel level that is related to Call of Duty and not anything else. Because when people, with kernel level is that this thing is placing itself between your processor and the software itself, and it's inspecting, unless it's limited like they're saying theirs is, everything that your CPU is doing to and from the software. And so that's why security, people were like worried about security stuff with Valorant's kernel level and all this other shit. However, they're saying that this is not, your privacy is paramount, etc., etc., etc. So there you go. That's going to drop. It's not out yet. That is coming, I think, later in the month, or it will launch alongside Vanguard or something along those lines. But that should severely dismantle a lot of the hacking happening across the Call of Duty Warzone and certainly the would-be hacking in Vanguard as well. That should get rid of a shitload of it. The vast majority anyway. Which is great because really there does get to a point where you play like 3 or 4 games in a row and you're coming across hackers in every game, and then you just start to it's one thing to get your ass kicked. It's another thing to be, getting your ass kicked multiple games in a row by somebody that's just hacking, and that's just bothersome. And the developer doesn't want that. The player base doesn't want that. And it took them a while to get here, but it's here. Finally here. We'll see how well it works. I will be interested to see if they release numbers on how many it catches in, let's say, the first week or some shit. Like how many hackers this thing actually picks up. But yeah, there you go. Battlefield 2042. It's the last major mode called Hazard Zone. This was just announced today, Mr. Black. Hazard Zone was announced today and is a PvPvE style mode that takes cues from Escape from Tarkov and Hunt Showdown, it seems. I have a link here so that I can give you a better rundown because it's a little more complicated than I could memorize. But if you've played Tarkov or you know about Tarkov, then a lot of this is going to sound a little bit familiar to you. And I think is probably going to be their biggest argument for having specialists instead of having individual classes like they did in old Battlefield. But that's another part of this topic that we're going to get to after this. So, let's see where. Okay, so unlike the Battle Royale, this comes from PC Gamer, by the way. Unlike Battle Royale, the goal of Hazard Zone is not to kill, but to extract out of the Hazard Zone alive with as many data drives as possible. Players have to buy guns and choose specialists before a match using in-game dark market credits earned through play. That's similar to Tarkov, where whatever you get out with is what you use for subsequent runs. If the setup sounds familiar, Hazard Zone seems to take inspiration from raiding games like Hunt Showdown and Escape from Tarkov. Like both of those games, Hazard Zone players risk losing gear permanently if they're eliminated before extracting from the map at designated exfiltration zones. On PC, PS5, and Xbox Series S and X, Hazard Zone will support up to 32 players, that's 8 squads in total. And PS4 and Xbox One will be capped at 24 players, or 6 squads. Hazard Zone will support all 7 launch maps that will also be present in Standard Conquest mode. In addition to weapons, players can use dark market credits on perks for their next run. And then they have a list here on PC Gamer of perks that EA included in its briefing for this, and it's just stuff like, more starting armor, and other things similar to that, like quick draw with switch weapons faster, etc., etc. Yeah, so that's what this last mode is. It's the last of the major modes that they're announcing for 2042 at launch. Then the discourse continued around this game this week after the continued beta about the whole concept of them having removed classes. So you'll remember back when we used to play a shitload of Battlefield, there were classes for everything. You had your medics, you had your engineers, etc., etc. So in this, they got rid of all that shit. They said, fuck that, let's be like everyone else and just have specialists so that we can push Battle Pass. And so they did. And everyone hates it. And by everyone, I mean the vast majority of people can't stand it. Because it really doesn't make that much sense in the context of even the Battle Royale form of Battlefield. And it definitely makes it feel like it's no longer Battlefield anymore, is what people say. It just doesn't even feel like they're playing Battlefield at that point, because it was one of the defining features of Battlefield. And so when this was announced today, some of that discussion shifted a bit to saying, you know what? While we would prefer to have classes in the Battle Royale mode that are like classic Battlefield, it does, or specialists do lend themselves to a mode like this. What was it called? Fucking Highway to the Danger Zone? Already missed. Hazard Zone. So it lends itself to Hazard Zone having specialists instead of classes. And so people were saying that they would be okay with that, but they would like to have those two things separated. Coincidentally, EA sent out what am I fucking... My brain is just toasted today. I slept too much apparently on my birthday. They sent out a survey, is the word my brain refused to conjure up. Sent out a survey for the game in the beta, asking a lot of questions obviously, but specifically in there included how people felt about the loss of the class system. And so, yeah, so that's likely to be what a lot of people are going to say. Is either A, they want the classes back, or B, they want classes in the standard modes and specialists in this hazard zone. Did you play? Did you ever? Tarkov was a game streamed a lot for quite some time by everyone. Did you ever try Tarkov back in the day when it was?
I played a little bit of it, but it's not my.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing.
It's not my thing. It's not my thing, bro. It's Battlefield. Battlefield sounds like a hot fucking steaming pile of dog shit. All right. It's painful to even sit here and talk about this game again for another 15, 20 minutes. And this game is going to be dead on arrival. You know, they want to take these fucking surveys and shit. The survey says your game's dead on arrival. All right? This was the wrong time to ask if people want their classes back. It's too late. You made a decision. This just goes to show they're panicking. They don't know what the fuck to do. They realized their standard Battlefield is dog shit and not many people like it, and it's getting criticized up the ass, and it costs $90 to play, and there's no campaign, and the shooting feels like dog shit. Graphically, it's not even all that impressive either. It just looks so bland.
They also held on dearly to that green filter for some reason. Did you notice that? I don't know.
I noticed that. And the other thing is it just sounds like they're using buzzwords of games that people actually care about. And they're like, oh, hey, you know that game Tarkov that you guys really love? Well, we're just going to throw it in Battlefield now. Since you think our main game is dog shit. I mean, it just sounds bad, man. It just sounds bad. It's bad. They're not going to do it as good as Tarkov. I'm sorry. So the ones that are going to go in and play this game that are interested in this, for one, it's going to be hard to get them to spend $80, $90 for this game, or fucking $70 in the US.
That's a hill to climb.
I mean, it's going to be tough. And on top of that, they're gonna know it's gonna be nowhere near as good as Tarkov. This mode feels like an afterthought. This feels like they in the end here. They need some kind of good news to get people hyped about something, and this is what they're using. Oh, you know that game you really like, Tarkov? We got that in this game.
You know what's interesting is that they saved this to be the last mode announced, which tells you, because they didn't show off like a bunch of gameplay and shit, they just had a trailer for it, right? It tells you that to them, they thought this was like the finishing move. This was the big special attack that came in, and it was flashy, and it was going to get the crowd hyped up, and oh my god, what an amazing end. And then on the other side, it was like it was just a rough way to fucking go. Obviously, they thought this was going to go over better than it did.
Well, I think it would have went over better if their main game was actually good. Like if the main game was good,
yes.
Like the Battlefield that we like.
Yes.
You know, if they came out and they're like, guys, this is the shit you've all been waiting for, and we fucking nailed it. Oh, and by the way, there's a little bow on the top for those that really want to get, extra spicy with it and really want to get ultra competitive and really want to get sweaty over this shit. We got our own version of Tarkov in this game. Oh, and it's in the Battlefield world that you guys love. But that's not it. The thing is like nobody's buying Battlefield for this. They're buying Battlefield for Battlefield. This is bonus. This is the thing that if they played their cards right and made a good game, that this other mode might have been the thing that actually gave it legs.
You know what this makes me
a little different. It's bad.
You know what this feels like? This feels like at some point this was the main mode.
Probably.
And at some point they decided to make the call that this wasn't going to be the flagship, but they were going to run the Battle Royale as the flagship mode instead. But this feels like at some point this was the top dog, the top contender. Because the fact that specialists are a thing as well feels more like, even though I just memed earlier about how they put specialists in so that they could have a battle pass, I don't think that's necessarily it, but but it does seem like like this mode, for example, does lend itself more to specialists. And so I feel like the specialists were part and parcel with this mode, and this mode was possibly a front runner, and then they just said, man, you know what? Battle Royale has continued to be the flagship, a first-person, third-person shooter mode in the space. We need to run that as the prime real estate for Battlefield 2042. And then this other mode, this hazard mode, now this has got to become, this is the kicker. This is the special sauce at the end. And I still think people are going to really, like it, but we're going to run this at the end. And you know what it ended up? They thought it was going to be like the crowd cheering and everyone popping off.
Yeah.
You know what this was like? This was like that classic, one of my favorite esport moments of all time, Mr. Black. It was Daigo versus Justin Wong. And Justin Wong popped off the Chun-Li fucking special at the end of this match. And it was for all the marbles. And there was no light. Daigo was on that 1 HP dream. And Daigo, like a fucking god, one frame parried every single fucking kick in that special. And then flipped it and finished Justin Wong instead. And it's one of the greatest moments in esports, and that's what this whole thing feels like. This feels like they thought that they were being Justin Wong. They were going out and they pressed the end this shit button, and there was no way that you were going to one frame fucking counter all of it. This is our big play, our big money play. And the crowd was cheering and stuff for like 2 seconds, and then Daigo starts blocking. Because they start realizing, like, you know what? Maybe this ain't so hot. Why is this why the specialist exists? This is bad. Why did that creep over into the main game? Nobody wants that shit. Why are you still trying to tell everyone that the beta is like 4 months old? This game comes out next month. Are you telling me that there was no other recent build that could be launched within 3 weeks of the fucking release of this game? And you're going to lean on that being the reason why your game plays and looks and runs like dog shit? And then you're going to drop Hazard, fucking Danger Zone, as if some sort of like fucking incredible finishing move to the embarrassing run that's been the lead up to this game. And just like that, they got parried into fucking oblivion. And at the end, everyone's cheering for the opponent instead of them. And they're just left there with their dicks in their hands with excuses as to why everything the way it is. And in fact, they came out and talked briefly about the fact that this is why developers aren't as forthcoming and transparent with the player base and why betas are run the way they are because people react poorly. No, bitch! Don't lump everyone in the same fucking boat here. There are people that will bitch about stuff that they shouldn't bitch about because it makes no sense. But let's not pretend like your game that your game in its current fucking form is going to be anything other than a disaster at launch if it is not literally 5 to 6 times or more efficient at running, better balanced, and almost entirely changed. The fact that, like you said, the fact that they're even asking the question,
crazy.
Do you guys prefer the class system or the specialists? The fact that that's
crazy.
even a question,
no,
less than a month away or a month and change.
Not a good sign.
That's bad.
No, it's real bad. It's the worst, actually. It tells me one thing. If it overwhelmingly came, I want my shit back, and they know the game's not good, they have to give them their shit back, which means this game's going to get delayed 6 more months. Which, by the way, I think the game's going to get delayed again anyway. Oh, and by the way, how do you make a good Battlefield game, a traditional Battlefield game, when you're building multiple modes and you can't even get your flagship right? Like, how is this going to be successful? It's not even free to play. How is this game going to do good? Like, it's hard to imagine a world where Battlefield actually stands the test of time against Halo, which actually looks good, and they don't have any side Tarkov fucking modes and all this other shit. They have Halo, right?
Yes.
And it's free. They have Halo. Okay.
Yes.
Call of Duty has Call of Duty. Oh, and guess what? Now they're getting rid of hackers. What do you have, Battlefield? Are you gonna have hacker problems in a game like Tarkov? Are you? The game's dead, man. I'm telling you, they're gonna sell a bunch of copies because it's Battlefield, and we all know that they're gonna sell some copies. But this game dies within a month. This is over for them. They're going to get outshined by all the other shooters, and what they're going to have is a fumbled, jumbled fucking mess. And the game is going to go free to play within 6 months after the game comes out because they have no choice. They'll have absolutely no choice.
And you know what's sad? You know what's really sad though is that Vanguard also fumbled bad in the beta, but it doesn't matter because it's Call of Duty.
It's Call of Duty.
So they can't. So Battlefield doesn't get to rely on Call of Duty falling apart. You know who they could have relied on falling apart? Halo.
Yes.
But they don't get to rely on that. It doesn't, like, Call of Duty could literally be a catastrophic failure. It will still outsell Battlefield at its absolute peak. Battlefield could have come out at its peak in the history of the franchise, and a shit COD is going to outsell it, so it doesn't matter.
By multiples.
By multiples.
Yeah.
But they didn't get that. And they fumbled it so fucking hard.
But we'll see.
So hard.
We'll see. Listen, I'm sure we're gonna talk about Battlefield next week. And
there'll be more info. Yeah, yeah.
There's gonna be more shit that's gonna come out, and then there's gonna be a delay, and then we're gonna say I told you so. and if the game isn't delayed, then it's gonna be so disastrous that we're just gonna watch this plane crash, and it's gonna be horrible. So Godspeed, Battlefield. Godspeed. I've heard two people tell me that they liked the game.
I've heard one.
Not loved. They liked the game.
Yeah, I had one.
Everyone else, it wasn't like, oh, it's okay. It was, that felt bad.
Yeah, that was not a good experience.
That is a fucking hot mess.
And if you go to consoles, it's even worse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, don't even play it there. So Godspeed. Good luck, Battlefield. You need it.
Eidos, Montreal and Eidos, Sherbrooke have or are, I guess it doesn't really matter which way you go with that, officially moving to a 4-day, 32-hour work week. Finding efficiencies, this is all, I pulled like bits and pieces of this and put together this paragraph based on the release that they put out about this. Finding efficiencies in the scheduling, like reducing meeting run times, which I think they stated, for example, they're going to take from an hour for all the meetings down to a half an hour instead, which that by itself would have made a lot of people happy, because how many people love going to meetings and sitting there for no fucking reason while it wastes all their work time? So finding efficiencies in things like reducing meeting run times and other avenues to ensure that it isn't about cramming more work into fewer hours so much as promoting healthier and more efficient and focused work in fewer hours to allow for a better work-life balance that should lend to happier, more productive employees, as seen in pilot programs for similar work weeks in other areas of the sector and the world. And there have been in multiple countries now and in similar sectors and other sectors, many large companies piloting programs for 4-day work weeks to see what it did to productivity, what it did to work efficiency, and what it did to overall employee satisfaction and retention, things of that nature, burnout, and all the other factors that you could list. And so they're saying pilots look good enough to us. We're going in for it. So they're the first in the video game market, at least over here on this side of the pond. I don't think it's happened anywhere else, but it's been discussed in other places. They're the first one. They're dipping the toes in the water. What do you think, Mr. Black? You got a smirk on your face. What do you think about the 4-day, 32-hour work week? I can't wait to hear about the grind. What do we got?
Well, I mean, you already know where I'm at, man. You already know how I'm built. So, you know.
But if you get the same output, so if it's all about making money, and the money at the end is the same, and the quality of the output is the same, but you have employees that aren't burnt out and enjoy themselves more and don't get employee turnover, so you're not replacing people with HR constantly, does it matter? Or is it only a case of it matters if we go a 4-day work week as 32 hours and suddenly productivity tanks out and like the end result is we're making less money, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to quantify what exactly is productive, right? Because like, there needs to be a longer sample size.
Well, this will be something that we have to wait 1 to 3 years to get like and see the bottom lines of all of those that take this dive, right?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is kudos. Listen, kudos to them. All right. Obviously, their hearts are in the right place. They're looking out for their employees, which most don't really give a shit.
It's certainly the antithesis of what we hear about in the video game industry a lot, where it's like
it's like
crazy crunch time and stuff.
The movie industry is going through the same thing right now, where there's potentially gonna be a massive strike.
It definitely seems like an entertainment industry specific deal, where like the crunch,
it's the arts, right? Yeah. This is what happens when you're an artist, right? This isn't like a blue collar job. This is arts. This is expression. This is you just have it harder. Period. In virtually every art there is. I mean, I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer and say like, oh, these guys are crazy and whatnot. It's their company. It's their business. I mean, if they wanna do and promote 4-day, 30-hour, 32-hour work weeks, all the power to them. We will see, which I can tell you, the vast majority of gaming developers and publishers, they're never going to do this, ever. Because this is going to absolutely fuck. I don't care what anybody says. This is going to screw up deadlines. 100%. And we will see if this turns out to be, hey, we're promoting 4-day, 32-hour work weeks, but in the last month or 2 months of production, we're all going overtime. Overtime. Because while we've been enjoying sitting at home for 3 days a week, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of ground that is not being taken. I mean, imagine corporate calling up this company and going, hey, how's it going? I'm not sure. It's going good. It's Thursday. All right. Which means we'll be back in office on Monday. All right. We'll let you know on Monday. It's just like, unless they are keeping it around the clock and they're hiring more people and they're getting certain people to work on these days so that they have 3 days off, but the production is going 7 days a week, right? Or 6 days a week, right? Or 5. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm going to be honest. I don't buy into 4-day work weeks to be more productive than a 5 or 6 day work week. I don't see it. I mean, listen, if you get an employee that actually gets more work done in a 4-day, 32-hour work week than a 5-day, 40-hour work week, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. What are they doing? You know what I mean? This means there's absolutely no room for slack in any way, shape, or form, or anything during these 4 days, 32 hours. This is like you are dialed the fuck in. Like, you better be happier than a pig in shit. Like, you better come to work with a big ass smile on your face, and just get ready to get shit done. So, I mean, I don't know. You need a longer sample size, but 4-day, 32-hour work week, it just seems very counterproductive. I mean, if this was like a firefighter that was like, had to be on call for 24 hours or whatever, this makes sense. But crazy. It's just crazy. And there'll be people that are like, there's going to be tons of people like, oh man, yeah, dude, if I only had to work 4 days a week, I'd be so much happier too. Yeah, fuck, we all would be happier. Yeah. If I only had to work four days a week, I'd probably feel pretty good too. But it's all about how your employer is going to, press your ass, and what those deadlines come down to.
Yeah, I think within the, if we're just going to talk specifically, I guess, about, what I'm going to say is specific to the video game industry anyway, I suppose, although you could probably extrapolate it to other areas as well, or expand it to other areas, is that ultimately, I guess it comes down to what are the goals of the company, right? So if the goal of the company is to produce good games that make all of their money back and then some, obviously enough to grow the company at a whatever rate that they find as the company acceptable, then that's the mark that they're shooting for. For some companies, that's going to be an ever climbing thing where they want to be top. They want to be the next Activision. They want to go from just being like a developer to a publisher to the largest fucking entity in the market and continue to climb that ladder that way. Then that is unlikely to be achievable within a I wouldn't say impossible, but obviously far more difficult because of the rigors of trying to get to that point. Within a 4-hour or 4-day, 32-hour work week schedule. Unless, like Jeff was saying, for example, you did something where perhaps you scaled back employee compensation, but you said 4 hours, 32, or 4 days for 32 hours, and then the scaled back compensation allowed them to run split shift 4 days, so that's running 24 hours a day, 7 days, which would be like you're basically doing a nursing rotation to that point where you got back shift workers.
Well, you almost have to.
And day shift workers.
Yeah, how do you games?
Well, if you're doing it that way, then it's obviously the compensation and how it would increase the cost of the game, and so there would have to be the game would have to make more money by virtue of being out sooner. But that's not necessarily what makes a game a bunch of money. It's not. So it depends on like the industry, like how important is being first to market with something new, or just is it the next iteration of your thing? How much does that shift the bottom line if you do it that way? And if that's the case, then maybe we can afford to do a 24-hour rotational shift where people are getting paid like 70 or 60% of their total, but then we have people working back shift, front shift over and over again. But yeah, within this instance, you know, and knowing Eidos in terms of the games that they've produced and whatnot, they're not a company that's out there chasing. They're not trying to be Ubisoft where they go out to their shareholders and say we're aiming to make 5 AAA titles a year. Eidos is definitely not chasing 5 AAA titles a year. Eidos traditionally is let's get one game done well, and if it's making us money and it's still growing the company, then that's our mark, and go for it. And I think that company goal or endpoint is obviously far more achievable within the confines of a 4-day, 32-hour work week than it would be if you were, again, trying to be, let's say, Ubisoft or an Activision or something, and trying to chase the dragon, so to speak, in that regard. To the point where, like, Activision's got, at one point, they had, 3 studios doing Call of Duty on a 6-month rotation. What was it? Treyarch, Sledgehammer Games, and one more, and it was literally every 6 months a Call of Duty. Like, that's a different animal and would be much more complicated to pull off. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I know that I haven't had a chance to read any of the more recent ones. I know that the 4-day work week was in part being looked into and studied more when I was in university in places, more specifically Europe than it was here. It wasn't, and most of this originates in Europe, and then it trickles over here later on, to my recollection anyway. So it's not new, and some studies have been running for a long time, but I do feel that this is, in my opinion, incredibly industry specific, and then company goal specific, in terms of what are you aiming to accomplish as the company, and then is that possible within the confines of this? Because the raw data that they have discovered, whether it's in a short term or a long term thus far, and again, I don't know about industry-specific stuff like the video game industry, it's that, by and large, especially within office work and things of that nature, people accomplish the same amount of productivity within a shorter, basically the concept is a much shorter window of time than is the required, which if you've ever worked an office job, you probably have experienced at some point. I know I did, where there were many days of the week where there was literally no more work that I could do. They had nothing else to give me, but I was at work and there were still 4 hours left in the workday. I was just efficient enough at my job to be done by, like, let's say lunchtime, 1 o'clock. And I started creating work for myself where I was, because there was nothing else for me to do. And that's not like super uncommon, where you'll get a lot of periods of multiple days where people are just pretending to work because there's nothing else to do. And that's been a meme and a common stereotype for years. And so while it's not every job in every industry, and that would be my take, it's certainly not everything that it applies to. I think there are probably some places that can work that out. And then, like anything, it's up to the company as to whether or not they compensate their employees the exact same amount, or if they scale back the pay based on the hours. And I think that for a lot of people, if you took their pay from 100% down to 80% of that pay scale, or even 75 or 70%, and then offered them a 4-day work week, I think a lot of people would take it, if only because they could, if they wanted to, like with the gig economy as it is now, they could take up a gig on the side and also have more personal time and probably make enough money that while not feeling as overworked for the 100% of the pay scale. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And it's one of those things that we're getting into the point now, like we're seeing here, where companies are actually employing it. And so now we'll get to see, and hopefully more industries, so that we have examples from not just gaming, but other industries as well in different sectors to be able, and different places in the world too, where different cultures dictate different work-life balances, to see how it all works out. Because that is also something that you don't think about sometimes, is that other places, the work-life balance is treated totally differently, and their work schedules are already different than what we would, for example, have here in North America versus what they have somewhere else, like whether that's Japan or within certain countries within Europe, etc., etc. So there you go. Eidos, first one to take the dive, to my knowledge, within the video game industry, and we'll see if they're the last.
Oh, they will be.
From there, I bet you that this will crop up in B tier and under, and by that I don't mean in terms of quality, but in terms of like the size of the company. I think this will skew to indie and mid and B tier because their goals are different from the megacorp level, and so this will probably float in around there.
I still don't think a 4. This definitely sounds more of an individual business philosophy and a work environment that the owners, the CEO feels deeply about. It might even be, a play to the industry, pandering a little bit to, hey guys, if y'all don't like working at wherever 60 hours a week, look what we do. 4-hour work weeks, 4-day work weeks, 32 hours.
Definitely an incentive for some people, for sure.
It's a big incentive. Especially if they're keeping salary. That's the other thing. It's like, are you keeping people's salaries the same as what you were paying when they were working 40 hours or 48 hours a week? Like, are you scaling down how much money they make as well? Like these details aren't being said, right? So like, we don't know. Like they might say, hey, there's absolutely no chance for overtime. There's absolutely, we can't pay you for your 40 hours a week. We have to pay you for 32. Kudos to these guys if they are still paying the same salaries and they're giving people essentially an extra day off a week to do whatever they want with their time. The vast majority of those employees will not do side gigs to make more money. They'll just take more time off, and all the power to them. And all the power to them. Yeah. I mean, shit. If Twitch was paying me to do 4 days a week, and I was making the same money as I was making working 6 or 7 days a week, fucking damn right, I'm gonna sing that shit to the. I mean, hell yeah, I ain't complaining at all. You guys are amazing. But it's the details that matter, man. What are these guys going to be like come the finish line when they need this game done? For the big dogs up at top that's going, motherfuckers, like, fuck your 32-hour work weeks. We need this shit done. Because while you guys are down there playing with your little bit of money, we up here like dealing with some big time dollars. That's why you'll never see these big developers do that. It's just never going to happen. But hey, if they can make that shit happen in their own environment, and they can create some really great working atmosphere, fuck, I'm all for it, man. You're not going to hear me complain. I mean,
yeah, shit. I think it's very similar. It's kind of like, now that you mention it too, it's similar to the concept of like when people get bought out for contracts, people are like, why would you do that on like Twitch and stuff, or like when they took Mixer contracts, and it wasn't just about the bag, because they were going to make that money more or less wherever they went. It was about the fact that the stipulated streaming hours for the same amount of money went from they have to really grind it out to, 30-something hours a week.
Yeah, 40-hour weeks opposed to 60, 70-hour weeks. I mean,
and you're done. And the time is the much more valuable at that point than the money, and so you go that route for that reason.
Time is the most precious commodity that we all have.
Exactly.
If I could free up 30 hours a week and I'm getting paid the same, you take that every single time. And there is truth to the statement. You're going to work better and be more fresh and happier as an employee doing that. The real question is, can the employer afford to do that? And how long can they do that? Because they have costs. They just do.
Here's another... Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done, sorry.
I was going to say, like, you might be more productive, and even if you aren't more productive, you just might be happier, and that shit just rubs off on everybody else, just making it a better... That shit comes off in your work and everything, right? Like, you just more attention to detail.
You often do better work when you're happy. I mean, that's 100%.
Kind of... Yeah. 100%, right? Yeah. So, that is absolutely true. But the real question is, can the employer stay true to the word, pay you the same amount, and, do this long term? Are they still going to have business that's going to want to deal with them? You know, there's a lot of companies that take a lot of, listen, I take a whole lot of value from contractors. I'll use a real estate example. When I do major renovations, specifically when I did this renovation on this triplex, and I gutted it, I had to deal with so many different contractors, and I was the general contractor. So I had to go out and talk to everybody. Now, there are contractors, and there are quite a few of them, that will only work Monday to Friday. Don't call them before 8 a.m. Don't call them after 5 p.m. They're not answering. They're literally not answering their phone. It's going to voicemail. We'll be back. Now, for them, sure, a lot of them are mom and pop shops that value their off time. Now, for somebody like me, that is a go guy, that's just like, no, I want answers. I want them now. I value a company or an individual that is willing to drop what they're doing or work that extra hour. If I call them at 6, 7 p.m., they're willing to go out of their comfort zone or bust their ass a little harder to get the job done. And the real question is this company still going to be able to attract a lot of these clients that are exactly that? And the vast majority of the big clients are that. We need to get our shit done. When the world is on fire and everybody's screaming and blowing down your back, you got to be able to get there and get the shit done. That's going to be the real question. It's why a lot of these industries don't do that. It's why it's like that in the healthcare system. It's like that in the movie business and virtually everything is because there's too much pressure. Shit has to get done. There's deadlines. Every time a game goes longer, every day, it's like a movie. Every day a movie goes on is costing them sometimes hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars just from having everybody on set chilling. Fuck, you got to pay everybody. You got to feed people. Got to keep the lights on. We'll see how they can do it, man. It's impressive if they can.
So for them at least, I don't think that Eidos often, although I could be wrong with this, I don't think they do, because I think they're pretty busy with their own stuff right now. I don't think that they're somebody that gets outsourced a lot to other companies to do bigger projects. They might occasionally, but I think they mostly do their own stuff, which is probably also why they're going to be able to experiment with this and do their thing. Yeah. And when it comes to that, I think that's like one of those things where you're on like a strike system, right? Where if you are a company that does do, work for other companies to help them with larger projects, like let's say Crystal Dynamics working with the Initiative to create the new Perfect Dark game, because they needed to scale up the team, and it just so happens that the leader of the Initiative was also the leader of Crystal Dynamics for a time, so that was a convenient merger, but that similar thing where they're working with another development house. That's a thing where you say, all right, we need you to get this thing done, and it needs to be done by this date. You either hit it within your, and they, working with them that they're on a 4-day week, 32 hours.
Yep.
At the end of the day, for the major project, it will all come down to, is the thing done when it needs to be done, and is it to specification or better? If they hit that, they're never they could work 1 day a week, they don't give a fuck. Because they're paying for an end product that needs to be done by a certain time. But if they show up and say, hey guys, it slipped a little bit, and when we went home on Thursday, we just didn't have the time to get it done before Monday, obviously that then becomes a problem, and then you probably don't get calls from people in the future. That's a different situation. Apparently, according to chat, somebody was saying that they did address, so the pay is staying the same as a 40-hour week, but they didn't talk about overtime yet. So the pay stays the same, but the overtime portion hasn't been discussed, at least not publicly. Like, Lord knows what the fuck internally they've talked about.
Well, I mean, overtime is still past 40 hours, right? So, overtime isn't 33 hours. Right?
No, but like in terms of when people were asking, do they get the same amount of the salary? Does it remain the same, scaled on a 40-hour week to a 30? That stays the same, but
that's good.
We don't know about if there was crunch, for example, and there was overtime. How does that pan out? Because it is the video game industry. I do suspect that in the last 2 to 3 months of the development of a game, where there tends to be the most crunch, although crunch in some of the bigger companies are like fucking 2 years now, which doesn't even that's not crunch anymore. You're just working a job that has you at the office for 16 hours. That's not crunch. That's your job now. Is you're there as long as a fucking brain surgeon performing expensive surgery for long periods of time. Then I suspect that, that will be a discussion as well, because I don't think in this industry, even if you're doing your own projects like they would be most of the time, I don't think you get away with not having some level of crunch. It's just how much and for how long and what's the pay look like for that. And that will be an ultimate thing that we see in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. It will be like whatever. I don't know what their latest project is going to be or what their next project is going to be, but what will really be telling is how does the next major project that they're starting from scratch, how does that turn out now that they've switched to this?
3 months of crunch instead of one. That's
well,
what
one
I,
month
that's
of
what I
crunch.
think.
1 month of crunch doesn't exist in video games. You either like you're
6
most
months of crunch instead of 3. That's what I think will happen. But we'll see.
We'll see how it all.
Hey, kudos to them. I'm not hating on it. Go ahead.
The last example that I had that isn't a direct analog, but it did just pop into my mind is that when I was in university, I had friends that went to Dalhousie, and then I was at St. Mary's, and both for business. Friends in business at Dal, friends of business at SMU, and SMU runs on a 4-day week. Fridays are off at SMU, with the exception of occasionally labs for certain classes might happen on a Friday, but otherwise the main bulk of your school week is Monday through Thursday. Whereas at Dow for the business side, there was a 5-day cycle. You covered the same amount of work at SMU as you did at Dow, and in fact, in one instance, your stats course within St. Mary's, not only were you on a 4-day week, but for business statistics, you covered in Dow what they did in 2 semesters, you did it in 1 semester. So you did on a 4-day week in 1 semester what Dow did in 5-day week in 2 semesters for business statistics. And yet you covered the same shit and it was all done, and I didn't feel rushed. Like, I didn't feel like I was like, holy fuck, I've got so much shit going, I can't fucking keep it all up. And I didn't feel any more under pressure as a student than the business students that I was friends with at Dalhousie within a 5-day week with the same curriculum. I don't know. I don't have any more of an analog to say, but to it, but to know that there are certainly circumstances where you can be doing the same amount of work in less time and not suffer for it and still allow, and what it allowed on the back end was more study time, which was great, or more time for projects. So when you had group projects that were a nightmare, and you had 5 people and you were the only one doing the work in the group, the classic fucking example, you had 3 days before the next fucking week came around, you had to have it done instead of 2 days. So there were benefits to it. I will say that the business statistics, 1 semester, 4-day week, it was tough, fucking hard, but at the same time, I still did well in the class, and I enjoyed it. I think more of it came down to whether your professor was good than the amount of time that you spent in the classroom.
That's what's going to happen in this specific situation. It's just like if you're doing a 4-day work week, like there is zero time for downtime, slack, none of that, right? So like, you better hope that extra day off preps you for the intense, nonstop work that you are going to be doing. Because the thought of it, sometimes some people like breaking up their work so that they have those moments to have a smoke break and check their phone and watch a little bit of Twitch.
The smoke break, yes, the classic.
I'm serious. Like,
no, I understand. I get it.
People get this what they get through. Like, listening to our podcast on the side. There's people that are working right now. Just different things like that. Like, that shit goes away when you're getting rid of 8 productive hours of working. That is a big chunk of time, and you better be prepared to get your ass in shape. One of the good things for the company is they're probably going to find out very quickly who the real workers are and who ain't. That's what it's boiled down to.
Which is fair ball. That's
which
great
is good
news for them. Like
Yeah.
if this allows you to find who your really valued employees are, amazing.
Yeah.
As an added benefit for them. But there you go. Microsoft looks to be changing its views on the right to repair and is now working with groups to figure out possible ways to make parts in their consoles more easily accessible by consumers to allow for self-repair to reduce e-waste, among other things. So, many months ago, there's I don't know if it's a consumer group-led thing or what, but there's a group in the States that is specific to this, or one of the groups working within the realm of the right to repair, which largely centered around Apple, because Apple has been so anti-consumer repair for so long that it actually became a thing that's now been floating around in the courts and whatnot, off and on. So this whole movement to allow people to be able to, within reason, repair their own equipment, or have the ability to do so if they want to save themselves fucking thousands of dollars in replacing stuff that doesn't need to be replaced, is coming back around in some sort of discussion, in some sort of movement. Because when you look at how many people are now buying electronics and on the cycles that they are, there is a shit ton of e-waste just fucking floating around. And it's not because something was permanently broken that you couldn't possibly repair. It was just that, a small part or a couple of parts that shouldn't be too hard to repair go out, and the company that you bought it from has made it impossible to fucking access without voiding like a warranty, or they say, hey, you want that repaired? Send it in. We'll fix it for you. It's just going to cost you $1,000. And what's the cost of of that entire thing? You buy a brand new unit of that thing? Like $1,250. It's like, oh, okay, so you want me to repair this thing for $250 less than buying a brand new fucking item from you? Obviously, a lot of people, it's like free upselling. You just go and buy the new fucking thing. So, or in this instance, we were just talking about Apple's insurance plans and stuff like that for their things, because anyone that's had to replace the screen on an Apple iPhone before, or something similar to that, or a part went on your MacBooks and shit, that shit is expensive as fuck to repair. And oftentimes a lot of people just outright replace the entire unit. So anyway, Microsoft's official or original legal counsel many moons ago now, I guess probably last year sometime, were very anti-right to repair. And at some point, Microsoft yeeted that legal counsel into the sun and replaced them. And now the new legal counsel is telling Microsoft, we should totally take a look at this. And so now Microsoft's completely changed their tune as of sometime in the summer and said, you know what? Yes, let's work together and see how much we can do to our products to allow people at home to repair them within reason, so that we're not just throwing a bunch of shit into the garbage every time something that shouldn't be all that hard to repair gets broken. So there you go. There's not really any more crazy news to that. I just thought it was kind of a neat thing. It's rare to see a company come forward and actually make the move themselves and not like be coerced legally into doing it. And it's nice to see as well, because it's true. We have way too much e-waste as a society now. We are just cramming shit out the door. It's the same similar reason why Apple and others stop putting chargers in cases when you're buying a new phone now. Like how many fucking chargers people have floating around their house. It's just like every drawer you open up, there's an old charger in like every fucking drawer, things of that nature. So yeah, it's good to see that kind of stuff happen. And lastly, praise be to the gaming gods, Mr. Black. I'm sure you might remember this being in several games back in the day on the computer. But Bethesda has finally pushed an update to the more than a little old Fallout 3. It's been a while. Removing the requirement for Games for Windows Live login and the forced installation of Games for Windows Live when you install that bad boy.
Bless.
It's gone.
Bless.
Finally. That was one of the most broken parts of PC gaming with anything that had to do with like Xbox Live integration or anything of that nature. It was forced and it was broken, and you oftentimes couldn't run your game because it was so fucked up. And it's finally gone. Not that Games for Windows Live has been used in that method for many years, but now that, of course, I'm assuming Microsoft having bought out ZeniMax and thus Bethesda, and Microsoft said, you know what, guys, we could probably turn that bitch off. We don't need that running anymore. That's not doing anything for anyone. So let's get rid of it. So they did. And so now you can reinstall your Fallout 3 and not have to run with that bullshit anymore. I still remember random anecdote about Fallout 3. Mr. Black and I both played and beat it, but Mr. Black beat it in about 4 minutes and 5 seconds because he accidentally, unbeknownst to him, managed to do like one of the few direct routes to the end game. And literally beat the game in like 2 hours and 3 minutes or so.
No, I beat it in a day. I beat it in a full day.
Was it a day? Yeah.
It was a day.
It's like, and he had no idea that he was going straight line right to the end, just haphazardly fucking got right to the end. And at the end, the credits are rolling, and he was like, "What the fuck? That's over too quick. That can't possibly be it. This is a Bethesda game." And lo and behold, it was because he accidentally straight line that bitch from front to back. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, that's it for gaming news, Mr. Black. We made it to the end, which means it's time to sell some mic stands and cameras.
Oh, we got Elgato. If you don't already, Elgato face cam. It's what I'm using. Look at this quality. Look at my baby face. You know what I'm saying? I'm all in high quality.
It's giving you that nice kind of almost like the beauty filter thing where it smooths out your pores. Well, you look so youthful.
That's geology. I've been using skincare products, man. Now, they don't pay us here, so I ain't plugging them.
Don't pitch that here. We're not getting paid for that yet.
But I will say I've been using some skincare products for about 5-6 weeks. Shit's actually working, which is crazy. But I'm not plugging them. This is all about Elgato right now. So if you don't got a face cam, you gotta get one right now. Alongside the Wave. They got the Wave 3s. Go pick one up. They're a microphone. Plug and play. USB. If you got an XLR microphone, they now got the XLR. What do they call that? The XLR Wave, right? The Wave XLR.
Yeah, the Wave XLR. It's the interface.
There it is. And there's so many waves and different products and stuff that kind of the names. They're getting a lot of products now. It's starting to. It's becoming tough.
They should probably stop using Wave for absolutely everything, and maybe like Tsunami or some shit. Change the verbiage a bit, because everything being Wave is starting to get like a little complicated. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So go pick one up. They got the Stream Decks. They've got everything essentially now. They've got sound panels, green screens, you name it, they got it. So go check them out. They're a big supporter of what we do. So make sure you guys go and show them love. Link is in the description below. And we also got NordVPN. If you guys don't got a VPN service, it's time. It's time. NordVPN.com/OTT. Use the promo code OTT and get yourself 73% off plus 4 bonus months when you get a 2-year subscription. 30-day money-back guarantee. Fast servers. You can game on them, stream on them, game and stream on them at the same time. Have up to 6 simultaneous devices, which means 1 account per household. Oh, there's more. You can stay safe. You can stay anonymous, whether you're at home or at a public Wi-Fi. And on top of that, you can watch different regions of Netflix at the click of a button. So, for example, if you are from Canada and you have somehow managed to watch 50,000 hours of Netflix and you have no other Netflix to watch, but you're like, man, if only I had access to the US Netflix, which has even more content. Well, now you do. Through NordVPN. You can mask your IP to a US IP and log in just like you normally would, but now you have the entire US catalog. And guess what? You can do that for any region of Netflix. Click of a button on any device, anywhere. NordVPN. Go and get yourself one. Link is in the description below. And most importantly, the biggest thing that y'all need to do is head on over to patreon.com/lagtv and throw your money at the screen. Dig deep into your wallets and your hearts and think to yourself, how long do I want this show to be on the air? Think about it. For $1, if everybody that watched this put $1 in, we'd have about $500 a month.
I was going to say 5, but you at least added 5. You went with a 500, so that's a little better than I was going to give us. There you go. That's good.
I'm just fucking with you. Listen, patreon.com/lagtv. If you guys got it, head on over there, show some love. And if you don't, it's all good. All we ask is that you leave a review, that you share it with a friend. If you're watching it on YouTube, you hit the like button, you leave a little comment in the comment section. You can let me know how bad my takes are. Do whatever you need to do down there, whatever makes you feel better. As long as you engaging, it's helping us. So go ahead and do it. We love y'all for it. And that's it.
Bless. Now it's time for
movies and TV.
Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City trailer drop. Did you watch it?
I did.
Did you immediately hate yourself after watching it?
I did, actually. I'm not gonna lie. It looks bad. It looks too on the nose.
It was definitely like, look at how many video game references we can make in this trailer.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at least it's not like, it's coming in theaters too, right?
Yes, it is.
Man, like if this was like a Netflix release, I wouldn't really care.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't look like cinema quality stuff. I'm just sorry, it just doesn't. There's a couple of good actors in there that like, you know, that are known, but not like they're not super known.
They bring some legitimacy to the
yeah. Like they're seasoned actors and actresses that can get the job done, but it looks a little bit too on the nose for me, where they're paying homage to the Resident Evil 2, you know, the video game.
It's like 1 and 2. It's like they merged them together.
Merged them together.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was like cutscenes that were like just come right out of the game that they just
they did
right
the zombie turn from the first game. That's I said I did a reaction to it on my channel, and I said the first thing was like, if I wasn't so lazy, I would just go and get a picture from the first game, and I bet you could fucking map that shit 1-to-1. Like everything was identical. And you know what though? I hesitate. And it's why I didn't like go in too hard on them too when I first looked at it. I don't want to dissuade them from, you know, putting as much of the games into this as they can, because that's what people bitched at them about not doing forever and ever with the Resident Evils that came previously. They were like, what about this is even Resident Evil other than you have the title and like 1 or 2 words, the T-virus, and there's zombies, and like that's not the only things about Resident Evil. So I don't want to like dissuade them from doing it. It's just like I think like you were saying, it's the way they did it was a little too on the nose. You want to have it in there, but you don't want to. You know, the people that played the games don't need it to be that blatantly fucking obvious. We're gonna see the shit.
Yeah,
if it's there, but if you make it everything about that and focus on it.
It just came off cheesy. Like
it makes you feel cheap.
It came a little campy and cheesy. No. And the CGI, man, it's not good. It's not.
It's terrible.
Good. It's
you know what was worse? The music choice.
Yeah, it was not a good trailer, guys. It was not a good trailer.
Straight up, I hear that song in the background, and all I can see in my head is the fucking He-Man meme version pop up, and I'm like, it was pulled right into the trailer. Why would you ever use? And maybe that was their idea. They were like, we know our audience are a bunch of 30-something-year-olds that are gonna like have played the games. They know this meme. It's as old as they are. Maybe it gets them talking about the shit even more. And it was like I have to give them credit to do that, because if I don't, then I don't know why else they chose that song. But the habit of taking them, doing bad emo covers of every fucking song that they put in trailers now needs to stop. Stop the madness. Yep. Not every trailer needs a slowed down emo version of whatever fucking cover song that you're doing for your trailer. Just choose appropriate music, for God's sake. The hell is wrong with you? Speaking of inappropriate music, The Rock decided to rap.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thoughts on that?
My honest thoughts, I didn't think it was very good. I liked the second part of his verse. I thought the first part was very it just didn't come off natural. It just felt like he was.
He used a thesaurus for part of that first half of the verse.
Yeah, well, not only that, I think he probably had his lyrics written for him.
Then somebody else used a thesaurus for the first part of that verse.
I mean, hey, listen, he's a big fan of Tech Nine. So, you know, kudos to Tech Nine because Tech Nine's an incredible artist.
Tech Nine's an amazing rapper, yeah.
Yeah, and he's well known, but he never really broke out of like the really well known underground kind of
people that like rap a lot.
Oh, yeah. He's respected a lot.
No Tech Nine, but then you're not the people that are listening to Drake aren't like, oh yeah, I fucks with Tech Nine.
Well, some of them. I mean, the hip hop heads, they know. They know
what I mean, though.
Yeah, the casuals, yeah. they don't know what Tech Nine is.
Yeah.
But the real hip hop heads out there know what the fuck is up. So I'm happy for Tech Nine because he's getting a lot. I mean, he's got like, you know, a #1 track. He's with The Rock. The Rock's a big fan. This is great for him. I thought The Rock did a fine of a showing, you know, but like he's not. You know, stick to your Disney songs, right? Like, you know, if The Rock came out, yeah, like listen, I think The Rock is ultra talented. He's hardworking.
Absolutely,
you know, he's that guy. But like, I'm never gonna buy a rock album. You know, if The Rock was like, hey, I'm gonna do a hip hop album and get all of the biggest artists around it, like, you know, I'm gonna listen to it just because I want to see the train wreck, but. I'm more so listening to, you know, he needs. I mean, it's hard to hate on the guy, right? And he's on a track with legitimately talented artists that are making him not look like great. And then on top of that, like this is the part that hurt me, is like, okay, you know what? He's in the song, and the song is like a serious song. Like they're taking it serious. Like this isn't a parody. Like he's making a real song. And you know, I thought the first was a little bit too like the first part of his verse was a little too on the, you know, buttons, and it just didn't flow like the way it was on beat. But I liked the second part where he was mimicking sort of a Tech Nine type flow. I thought that was really cool, and I actually thought that sounded good. But the part that hurts me, man, is at the end of it, like The Rock, he gets thrown his fucking tequila. And he's promoting his brand, his tequila brand. He does this Samoan thing that he always does, which is fine. I mean, you're representing your people, and that's cool and all. But like, dude, just shut it off for a little bit, man. Like,
not possible.
And then not only that, like the cringiest thing, it's like at the end he starts talking as well, like, you know, thank you, Tech Nine. You know, it's an honor, brother, and fucking whatever he says. It's like, dude, just. With all due respect, man, shut the fuck up, man. Just like do the music. Not everything needs to, like, you don't need to voice it. Like, it's hard to explain, but this guy is just like, he can't turn it off. Like, it's like, dude, if you just went in there and had some fun, which I'm sure he did, is one thing, but stop selling me shit. And like, it's the same thing. I knew the moment the song came out that within a day, you know what The Rock's favorite number is? #1. That's his favorite number. And then 7 for $7 because he had $7 in his pocket when he fucking left home or whatever. Listen, the guy is like, thank you for making this the #1 track on iTunes. Thank you. Oh, you know, the fastest growing song in all of America, in the world. #1. I'm surprised he didn't have a tequila in one hand and his fucking Zoa in the other hand, cracking them open and double fisting them. You know, it's everything. Like, even today, I watched a video on YouTube of The Rock, which was a cool video, but he just ruins it with, like, every time. It's like, I love the guy so much, but like, dude, stop. Just stop plugging your shit and stop, like, humble bragging everything you do, man. It's crazy. He had a video today that I watched on him on YouTube of being on a video in the gym, fucking jacked to shit, talking to a football team that he went to high school with, the same high school, and he's amping them up, and then he's giving everybody gear, right? All like and the first thing he says is, "What I'm doing for you guys," I'm paraphrasing, what I'm doing is I'm going to give you guys all of Project Rock's, the number one selling shoe in the world. Actually, the fastest growing number one shoe on the market, along with the patented Project Rock with the high school, the number one selling sweater in all of Under Armour. And we are just so, so grateful. Thank you guys for making this number one. Yes, number one. That's right, number one. And it's just, that's what it's a nonstop. He did it in the fucking song, man. I am surprised in a line. He should have had a line where he said, like, I'm number one in everything I touch. You know what I mean? Like, he needed to just own it. Like, the guy is like, come on, man. He's a walking fucking advertisement, and it's crazy. I understand. I'm ranting about The Rock here, guys.
You've officially, it sounds like you finally hit a boat where I was 2 years ago with The Rock. You've officially, you got there. It took a while.
And I'm a sellout, man. You know, I'm the guy that is all about make as much money as you can, promote and sell, and do your thing. But the shit it's hurting me, man. But I still watch it because he's such a charismatic guy and he's doing all the cool shit. And it's like, how can you hate on the guy? Because he doesn't seem like he has a bad bone in his body, but he's just so humble, braggy about everything he does. So he's got to add number one to it all the time.
Here's
worker in the room.
Yeah.
Hardest worker in the room. Blood, sweat, respect. Hardest worker, number one.
Jack Black, did you see the interview where Jack Black does an impression of The Rock and he does basically what you just did there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's how I feel about The Rock. Because where you are now is where I was 2 years ago with The Rock. You just took a while to get here, but we're here. It took Zoa and the tequila, but we finally got there.
The Zoa did me in, man.
The Zoa definitely was the tipping point. Yeah,
it did me in.
So I gotta be honest with you. I don't think The Rock's that nice of a guy. The moment and this is why you just said about 5 times in that rant about his humble brag. Nobody that's a nice guy, honestly and truly, humble brags as much as Dwayne the fucking Rock Johnson. Nobody that's honestly nice goes up and fucking sucks their own dick publicly as often as Dwayne the Rock Johnson and is still an honestly humble and nice individual on the back end. I'm not saying this man kicks puppies and punches babies. But what I am saying is that motherfucker is a diva. I bet you he's a nightmare to fucking work with. And he said, I bet you he is like that off camera and on. I bet you that guy is in his fucking trailer doing line reads, drinking his shit, and looking at the mirror and telling himself he's number one in every fucking category. That you have to be for it to just so freely flow from your mouth every 5 fucking seconds.
Yeah.
And then to have the fucking audacity to get on this track with Tech 9. And like you said, though, honestly, Tech 9's getting more out of this, obviously, than The Rock is.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy for him.
And which is exactly why Tech 9 would have also let him give his bibliography, biography, I should say, at the end of the fucking track where he just talks for a while. That's the only reason, is because it's shine for Tech 9 and Tech 9's shit. It's mainstreaming Tech 9. But, dude, you know who is a nice guy on average, or a more genuine nice guy on average, and doesn't fucking humble brag every 5 fucking seconds and does all this shit, and Dwayne feuded with publicly and just dug it up again 72 hours ago? Vin fucking Diesel. When's the last time you heard Vin Diesel open his fucking mouth publicly about him and The Rock having a fucking sissy slap fight over all this shit? It's only ever Dwayne. Every fucking time. And he always, frames it like there's peace at the end of every one. But obviously there's no peace if you keep running your fucking big ass mouth. And you come out and you're like, yeah, we sat down man to man and we really hashed it out, and at the end we really just discovered that we're two ends of the same spectrum. But there was peace at the end. Fuck you, there was peace. I bet you there was nothing. I bet you tried to sell Vin Diesel 5 fucking crates of Zoa energy drink. You probably tried to give him a free sweater and a fucking slap on the ass and a pair of shoes at the other end. You probably tried to fucking, like, say that you're welcome for me bringing your franchise to billion-dollar fucking status, and then walked out of the fucking room. Like, Vin Diesel is the type of motherfucker, he's like a big meat-headed geek. And he wears all of his shit on his sleeve. So when Vin says some shit, whether you like it or not, you know it's at least Vin saying the shit. When The Rock says some shit, he's constantly selling you. He's a car salesman. You never know when he turns it off because secret, he's never turning it off. It's always on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when Vin almost completely, and in my opinion, unironically, made the Fast movie about family, and together, that was entirely because of the feud between him and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And that was his way of making sure that Dwayne knew this wasn't for anyone else. This was for Vin and Dwayne. Dwayne to know
this is a pissing contest for sure.
That this is family, and the family is literally the people that made the franchise together, not Dwayne "The Rock" fucking Johnson that came in for 2 movies and did his fucking thing and then said, "Fuck you, I don't want to do this anymore if I have to be in a scene with you at this point," and walked away. The Rock has shown one of 2 things. One, he used to be, and I believe this honestly, it's not that I think that Dwayne is the kicking puppies and punching babies type guy. But he has, in my opinion, been hideously corrupted with his own success. He's one of the most successful individuals on the fucking planet. And if you go back and you watch his old wrestling shit and you know where he comes from in the wrestling business, where his father, Rocky Johnson, etc., his whole wrestling family, and his entry into the business, and how he got to where he was, and then how he acted in public and talked and interacted with people, and then when he got into movies and it wasn't just fucking walk tall, stand tall, whatever fucking movie that was, where he had a fucking 2x4 in his hand on the front cover.
Tall.
Like once he got past that point of like shitty like C-tier movies and he made his first big dollars, and then all of a sudden a fucking light, it wasn't a bad movie, but I was just using it as like a turning point. It's like a light switch change. And he went full sell all the time, humble brag.
He went full Hollywood, man.
Humble brag all the time. Yeah. And he is so far up his own fucking ass that he might find the testicles that have retracted because of the amount of fucking PEDs that motherfucker is on at 50 years old, cranking that shit out at the gym to maintain his physique, to sell Zoa energy drinks in a Tech 9 song. He is somebody that unfortunately success got to his fucking head, and now we're watching it in real time. But like you said, he's also incredibly charismatic, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're incredibly charismatic, you publicly get so much patting on the back that you have to reduce down to punching babies, kicking puppies before you start to get substantial backlash, and you maybe get a small reality check. Otherwise, like, think about who he's really humble around. The closest person that he's like sort of humble around or like is Kevin Hart. And it's because he's literally, and I swear this is my take, 4 times the size of Kevin Hart, and he can treat Kevin Hart like a child. You see how they interact in every fucking thing, and it's all Kevin Hart taking the L's in every fucking like paired up interview. It's all Dwayne at the top, and that's how he interacts with people. And that's supposed to be his friend, Kevin fucking Hart.
Well, I'm sure they're friends. I'm sure they're friends, but I think what it is with The Rock, and I'm just projecting, right? I don't know the fucking guy.
This is all just my opinion.
Yeah, he might actually be a saint. I mean, I really don't know. I have a hard time believing that, just from what I'm seeing. But there's no doubt in my mind that he's one of the he's definitely one of the most charismatic people in Hollywood, and has been for a long time. He's very successful. He does a lot of great stuff. He does a lot of great charity stuff. Unfortunately, even when he does these charity things, he's usually selling out and selling a brand, or if he's giving away a truck, it's the same brands and the same deals and the same exposure. It's not even probably him giving away this shit. It's stuff that is just partners and favors and different, shit like that. But
he's giving away for that brand for the exposure that he brings for the 100%. Giveaway.
100%. Because if you think Dwayne The Rock Johnson is going to go and buy a Ferrari and give a Ferrari to somebody knowing that the video is going to get 50 million views and Ferrari ain't going to pay for nothing, you're high as fuck. This guy is the ultimate businessman, right? Like, there's no doubt about it. The guy is the hardest worker in the room. And thus, he has an ego. I mean, the reason why him and Vin had such a butting of heads is because The Rock went into Vin Diesel's baby. That was his domain. That's his baby and family and everything. He came in, brought his Rock thing, was very successful, and probably thought he ran the show now, that it was his fucking shit. And he called the shots, and Vin Diesel likely checked him, probably took him and said, hey, motherfucker, like, I appreciate what you're doing, but bro, I'm the alpha in this domain. I hired you. You didn't
hire me.
And The Rock, I hired you, right? Yeah. But the thing is The Rock is probably not used to, I guarantee you, being around people that say no to him or challenge him, right? Because as long as he is quite literally the biggest, most towering person in any room he's in, and the most successful in any room he's in, if anybody challenges that, they usually go on the shit list. Look what happened to Tyrese. Now, Tyrese is fucking crazy. He's batshit crazy anyway.
Yeah,
but like
Tyrese off, yeah.
The Rock will fucking tear you a new strip. And he's got a lot of people on his side, man. He's got a lot of influence, a lot of power. I don't know how we got all the way around here, but I at the end of the day, I still really like The Rock. I think he is I think he's a good person. I truly do. But when you're making, hundreds of millions of dollars a year and you literally don't sleep, and the guy just works and works and works and becomes number one literally in everything. The guy just speaks it all into existence. Like, the guy is just like, it's almost like he's trained his audience to get everything he touches to number one. Like, it's actually insane. Kudos to him. I mean, he's a marketing god. We can write books about this dude, and there will be, and I'm sure he'll be president one day. I can almost guarantee you he will be at some point when he's ready to finally fucking slow the hell down and do a different job and be number one.
His charisma is the only reason the humble brag, he can get away with it. Because if anyone else humble bragged as often as he did, they'd be burned alive.
Oh yeah, they'd be a meme. They would literally be a meme. It just wouldn't happen, right? But it's The Rock, and he played the persona of the guy that was the fucking man, and now he actually is the fucking man. Like, not behind some scripted WWE shit. He is the actual fucking man. I mean, whatever the fuck The Rock wants to do in this world, he can literally do it. He could call anybody for anything, and they will say yes. They just will. So, I mean, listen, the song, great for Tech 9. I'm happy he's got a number one track. I could have done without the tequila throw in and the speech at the end, which was just like, dude, man, like, rap your verse and get the fuck off. Like, save your speeches and your last word, for your Instagram, not for a song. Stop giving me speeches, man. I'm over it. I don't give a fuck, right? So that's what I thought about the song, and a long-winded thing.
Netflix has ordered 10 episodes of That 70s Show successor, That 90s Show, and has essentially the original writers, some of the original producers, and is bringing back the actors who played Red and Kitty Foreman. Follows the daughter of Eric and Donna, who is visiting her grandparents, Red and Kitty, for the summer, and meets a new generation of kids in the area, and the show ensues. Great.
I like That 70s Show.
That 70s Show was a good show. We'll see if they can make the magic happen. You're just going to have, the saying, Red's going to say, call people dumbass, and Kitty's going to be an alcoholic and smoking her fucking life away, and the regular antics, but in the 90s. And I'm interested as to just how hard they lean into 90s culture on the show. Because, I mean, that's our generation now.
Well, they will. I mean, look how they did the 70s, right? So I'm sure they'll do just fine.
Yeah, so that will be interesting. And it's the only reason I'm really interested in this, other than the fact that that 70s Show was a great show. I mean, it ran eight seasons. It had to be good to get that deep in. is that they do have so many of the originals, not just the actors, but writers and producers, and so you're going to get the same feel, the same that same idea, the same kind of writing and producing and directing is all going to be very similar, and I think that probably gives it the best chance that it could possibly have.
I'll try it out for 10 episodes.
Absolutely. A new record breaker in Jeopardy as contestant Matt Amodio ends his run with a 38-game winning streak where he topped out at $1.5 million. So I can't remember if that was like the most games won in a row or what. It's not the most winnings, but he's up there now in the pantheon of Jeopardy millionaires. And now the person that beat him, I think, is on a 3-game win streak. We'll see just how far they get along. But there you go. Some people with enough fucking knowledge, random knowledge, to cram 1.5 mil into their pocket in Jeopardy earnings. Actor and impressionist. Oh, this is a big one for me this week.
I've already seen this.
You've seen this? All right, so we don't have to watch it then, I guess. We'll just leave it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Actor and impressionist Jamie Costa has worked diligently on his impersonation of Robin Williams for some time now. I think it's been a couple years. And now that's all coming to a head in a screen test that he and a few others put together of him portraying Williams in a would-be biopic. And this is just me saying this. Holy shit, does he nail it? Right down to how Robin breathed. Like, Robin had a very distinct breathing fucking pattern, and this guy managed to get that. There are several layers to impersonating somebody. Usually you pull the most apparent audio visual cues out of somebody and you exaggerate them and you get a caricature almost of that person. This guy does he looks just enough like Robin to help, but the mannerisms, everything. The fucking when he's standing, his shoulders to his neck carriage, his mouth movements, his eye movements, his breathing pattern, the dynamics of Robin's speech, where he'll go from a whisper to a fucking like yell in and out all over the place, and his everything. I was like blown away by how accurate he got with this, and for my opinion personally, if they don't do a biopic with this motherfucker, I think it's a wasted opportunity. That's a seriously almost no-brainer, especially given how many people would love to see a biopic about Robin. At least that's my assumption, is that a lot of people would love to see a biopic about Robin Williams. So what did you think about that screen test?
I've seen this guy like years ago. He's been doing this stuff with impersonating Robin even before Robin passed away. So
yeah, it's been several years. Yeah.
So yeah, he's good. He's very good. He's definitely the best. So we'll see. I'm not sure anybody's screaming to get a Robin Williams biopic. It's probably one of those things where his daughter, I think her name's Zelda, right?
Yeah, it's Zelda. Yeah.
She's probably going to have to be a big part of it and approve something if it ever did. I'm sure it's probably already been fielded to a degree. And maybe this is the reason why he put this out, to kind of get the public rallying behind this guy. He's definitely the one to do it. It's just usually when you get a biopic about something as tragic as what happened to Robin Williams, sometimes it goes one of two ways most of the time. It either goes where they don't show the really deep and dark stuff because they're paying respect, like they want to be respectful for obvious reasons, and then sometimes they will have conversations with people that knew him, have stories about him, and then they show all of, the good and bad of Robin Williams, right? So a lot of times it's very tough to get these things greenlit where everybody is happy. And most importantly, the people that need to be happiest the most is his family.
The family.
The family. They come first over everything, right? Fuck what the audience thinks. It's about really what the family would approve and what they wouldn't. So we will see if it happens. If it does happen, this is the guy. I mean, it's just that simple. And it doesn't need to be this big movie theatrical thing. This could be something that Netflix greenlights and does very, very well on Netflix. So we'll see what happens. But if there was one that came out, I'd be more than interested in checking it out and trying to get to know Robin Williams more than what we've just seen sort of on the surface. Because he seemed like a bubble of energy that was, fighting a lot of demons and made everybody happy around him but himself. And there's something, beautifully tragic about those types of individuals that I think we could all learn from, and ultimately live a better life from what other people have gone through. So we don't, necessarily have to walk through those footsteps. I think he would be a perfect bio piece to look at if done respectfully. Nobody wants to see a piece come out where they make him look like a monster or make him look like, something that he wasn't, right? So it's one of those things, man. You got to be careful.
Well, yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, but like you said, if there was a guy to do it, he's obviously the guy to do it, to play the part. I think for me, I would like to see a series instead of a single one-off, because Robin's career was elaborate and long and varied. Like, there's a lot of variety in his career, starting from going back to like being a fucking mime in out in the city, just doing sketch stuff as a mime, and then all of a sudden he's doing Mork and Mindy as his first real breakout, and then he spins that into his first couple of movies, and then the 90s he comes into his own, and it's just like he's a powerhouse in the 90s, and then the trail off into the early 2000s, and then the health issues that started to really crop up in the mid early 2000s and onward until we discover in his death the Lewy body dementia and things of that nature being a contributing factor to his mental struggles and why he started to be the way he was publicly, and to explain a bit of some of that, and which is, like you said, I think it would be, you have to do it respectfully. Everyone, it's not a secret. He was like, even like this segment shows here in the screen test, I mean, he was best friends with John Belushi. It was John Belushi, right? Jim's still alive. And they were both party animals, like everyone was.
Yep.
Like, and is this in the 80s? Everyone was coked out of their mind.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
See, but you got to be careful, right? Because then, like, when you make these biopics, right, people.
Oh, you look at that and it tarnishes like everything.
It tarnishes everything, right? And that's why you got to be so careful with these things. That's why you need the family involved, to make sure that he's being represented the way he should be represented. Everybody has their demons and everybody has their faults, and they should be shown, but they should be shown in a way that doesn't paint him to be some sort of monster or, anything else. I mean, he's greatness, right? So he needs to be treated as such. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I would watch it. And
there was a super.
I'd fucks with a series. It doesn't need to be 6-7 episodes, but
no,
if
like 3 to 5, maybe
3 to 5, and show different eras,
like the different eras of his career, right?
Show the party side, show the come up, the all of those sides, right? Show the darker sides, but just do it right, man. If you're gonna do it right, please.
And there was a good interview. What was his name? Charlie Day or something? I can't remember who the interviewer was, but it was right before the 90s, the true 90s breakout or late 90s breakout of Robin, where it was him and then also Matt Damon. It was right before the release of Good Will Hunting, and they did this big hour, I think it was like an hour long or more interview sit down. And you really got to see Robin where he wasn't constantly fucking bouncing off the walls, and you get to just actually see him and hear him talk about it. And also very interesting to see Matt Damon at that age discussing his career up to that point, because he mentions it's kind of a crazy timepiece, because he mentions how he's currently working on a big blockbuster that he thinks is going to be huge with Spielberg, and that's, of course, I think it was Spielberg, right? A Saving Private Ryan? Was it Spielberg? No, not Spielberg. Sorry, that was
Saving Private Ryan? I think that was Spielberg, wasn't it?
Was it Spielberg?
I think so. Yeah, Spielberg. Yep.
Yeah.
It was produced by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. So it was like before that. So right before Matt Damon just fucking like exploded, and right before Robin like really took off into his second wave of his career, and to see those two talk so candidly about this film, which for me, which obviously I'm biased because Good Will Hunting is in my top 3 movies of all time. And so, like hearing them talk about it in the process, and then more specifically hearing it's when you get actors before they, speaking about, The Rock, before they really blow up or something, and you get to see like their actual takes on people, it's like a totally different window into the person. Yeah. Very interesting interview. But either way, there you go. I'd love to see a series, 3 to 5 episodes. Hire this motherfucker. He's obviously earned it. Nobody's doing it better, Robin Williams, than this guy. Make sure that Zelda's on board, and the family, and hi-ho Silver away. But one way or the other, even if it never happens, I love that they did the screen test. I think they did a wonderful job of it, and props to Jamie for doing such a fucking incredible work of nailing somebody. Imagine trying the undertaking of mimicking Robin fucking Williams. Good luck with that. I watched the rest of Midnight Mass. It was an okay ending. Ooh. Honestly, as this continues on, like this from The Haunting of Hill House down through the line, we're doing this.
Really?
It's not like we're like fucking diving off a cliff.
Yeah, I liked Midnight Mass way more than the second Haunting season. Way more.
I would say they were like, for me, I could, in my head, if I sat down and compared them, I could have one day where I liked Midnight Mass a little bit more than the second Haunting, and then another day I could like the second Haunting more than Midnight Mass. They're pretty close, but the top is still by huge margin. The first fucking season of Haunting of Hill House. It's not that I thought that it was bad. I just like, I felt like that show was building, and it never really built to anything super substantial. It felt like it just kind of like sputtered out. And like even the characters themselves, ironically, literally sputter out there at the end, and it's just like, oh, okay, and then it just ends, and you're like, all right, okay, all right, okay, yeah, sure. So because the real peak, the real like the I'll say it this way just for the joke, the real coming to Jesus moment is 1 or 2 episodes previous.
Second last episode.
And then it feels like you've already got it. Like they could have ended it there, and the last episode is more or less, we're just going to show how we tie this end up, and then that's it. There's no more like aha or whoo or whatever. It's just like, here's us, literally, you're watching us tie up the threads, and we're done. And it's not that it was like done poorly. It just wasn't as impactful an ending as you got in some of the other shows. Even the second Haunting had, for me, a more impactful end game. Like, the overall quality of Midnight Mass is likely better than second Haunting, but the impact of the finale, for me, was better in the second Haunting than that. I still thought that it was great. It was a great show. And the actors just fucking crushed it. Honest to God, they all fucking nailed their roles amazingly, and I look forward to their next project, because obviously more is going to come. Oh yeah. Just next year sometime, I'm sure, and we'll get more of it, and hopefully they continue with the quality. But yeah, just for me, God, it's so hard to live up to the first Hill House. Like, my God, fuck. So it's a tough one for sure. I also watched, like I said earlier in the show, the Dave Chappelle special. Did you watch that yet?
I did.
You did? Do we want to talk about our thoughts?
I'm not going to. I'm not going down this road. I'm not going down this. I'm not venturing down it. I'll keep. I mean, if you want to share yours, you go ahead and share your thoughts all you want. I'm just gonna. I'm just gonna say, it's more Dave Chappelle.
I mean, that's accurate. It's obviously, if there's one thing that you can't say about Dave is that he's changed as a person at any point in his career. He's been the same guy for his entire fucking, adult life. He would have made the same pivot in his late teens, early 20s as everyone else. And then, like, once he hit that stride, it was just, we've been getting the same Dave Chappelle for fucking 20 years now. So, I mean, I'll give some loose thoughts. I'm not going to go deep into it or some shit. Only because what do I have to lose? I turned 33 yesterday. I'm a balding, white, middle-class white guy. The fuck do I care about, honestly? I'll just give my thoughts about it. I think the people that are really making a stink about this special fall into a couple of categories. One, they never watched the special in the first place, in its entirety. They caught a couple of 10 to 30 second clips on YouTube or somewhere else that had zero fucking context and was elaborated on by whatever writer was writing a much more salacious piece about that 10 to 30 second clip than the reality of it was. And then use their previous knowledge of whatever they've supposed about Dave Chappelle to weaponize it as a means of trying to bring this special down. Two, and this is honestly no disrespect. There are a lot of people that do not have the ability to understand things beyond the surface. So whatever you're projecting out, whether it's comedy or if you're writing a book, there are several layers to understanding of the context and the content of what the writer is, and whether this is music or otherwise. It's like if you, I'll try to make this as simple as I can, but it's like, remember when you're maybe in high school and you're learning to read Shakespeare, or you're learning to read poetry, and the teacher is trying to get you to learn how to read between the lines. You read something, and then the teacher will ask the class oftentimes, what do you think this means? It's like the first question. You'll read a poem, and the teacher will ask, what does this mean? And then hands are going up, and people are, and it's the most surface level, oh, this guy loved this girl. You're like, yes, that is absolutely true, because that's the most surface and readily identifiable piece or message in that poem or writing, etc. But then there's like fucking way more, and the true core of whatever is underneath that immediately identifiable, literally written structure in a lot of media, whether it's music, television, comedy, doesn't matter what it is, books, all there. There's a lot of people that do not have the ability to see past the surface. What is the surface of a Dave Chappelle comedy sketch? It is, in many instances, it's raunchy, it's bordering on shock humor, and he really doubled down intentionally so hard on the salacious, the raunchy, the shock humor as the surface medium for this special. He literally in the opening 5 minutes talks about sucking a priest's dick and enjoying it, and enjoyed coming on a priest's face. That is in the opening fucking moments of this special, and he knows what he's doing when he does that shit. And people will look at that, or they'll look at the transgender discussion that he has in this special and other specials, and they'll only see the very most surface things that he's saying, including when he says, I'm a transphobic, 7-8 times or more in this special. And it's obviously said in jest, in a juxtaposition of the reality of the entire story that he just told you, to have you understand that that's obviously not the reality of the situation. If Dave Chappelle is anything, and this is another issue that some people have, is that, yes, Dave is a comedian, but in his older age, Dave is mixing comedy with philosophy and storytelling. And he is a really fucking good storyteller. And he has the ability to tell you a joke up front and make you think that it's about this one thing. and you think you figured it out. And then he takes a real story from his life and tells you a story masterfully. You can't not listen to the man when he's telling a story. And then when you get to the end of it, you understand the real meaning as to what he tried to say or what he told you up front, and you think that was what it was, but it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that one thing. And most people get stuck on that one thing and don't get anything that fucking comes afterwards. So that's group 2. And group 3 are people that have a really hard time grappling with uncomfortable truths about circles that they're involved in or they identify with, and can't take a joke about it at all. There was not a lot of what I would call, in any sense, direct punching at, down, whatever the fuck they want to like phrase it as in the comedy world is usually a punching up or punching down, and normally comedy is about what they would call punching up at like the man or whatever the fuck, something above the comedian themselves and the group they're representing. There wasn't really much of that. It was more about storytelling and the realities of points that Dave wanted to talk about. And everyone that's bitching about it, I'm sorry, but I already saw in several threads when somebody said that they, oh, Dave's transphobe, he's a TERF, not just by his own definition, by like every other. And then somebody would ask them, did you watch the special? And dude, I'm not fucking with you. Like 90% of the responses that were asked that said, I didn't watch the special. Which is coincidentally what Dave in the special said, that the people doing this shit aren't watching the specials. He already knows. Dave doesn't dick around on social media and shit. He doesn't even know what happens. And like he says in the special, Twitter's not a real place because, pro tip, Twitter ain't a fucking real space. Twitter's some fucking weird alternate universe that is not reality in almost any metric. But the last group are that people, or those people that grapple with that shit. Because if also what Dave said, if you're really listening, pretty much everything Dave talks about is against white people. It's white people that also share other categories that are here, including, in this instance, transgendered people. And in this special, he goes out of his way on multiple instances to discuss transgender people wanting to limp in to a situation to get, to try to get things changed for them, which they should. But then when the shit hits the fan, they lean on what Dave calls their whiteness, which is true because they know the idea of being the whiteness. It's not about some sort of like specific attack on anyone. Dave is agreeing with you. Just like many other people agree with this group. But this group is, inarguably, from what I've seen in the non-existent world of social media, one of the most aggressive and angry and embittered groups for a number. It's not that they shouldn't, they can't be, but it's like even the people that are there, if you don't not only align yourselves with them, but align yourselves with them in a ways that they want you specifically to align with, then you are 100% the enemy. You're not just somebody that has slightly different ideas, but still want them to be able to have rights and to be treated like humans and have the human experience, which is actually the last comment that Dave makes in this special, is he tells a story about somebody that he knew that was a transgendered man to woman that was into comedy and gave this whole I'm not going to
don't ruin the whole.
I'm not going to ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the whole bit was at the very end about the human experience and how this specific person, for example, would be upset only if it was being made out to be more than them just going through life like everyone else, and they had their struggles, and as long as you understand that they're just out there trying to love and be loved and be themselves, that's it. It's the human experience. Everyone shares that shit. And so the discourse around Dave in this special and whatnot is so surface level and so centered on it, and he knew it. And a lot of his special was coincidentally speaking about that. He already knows, and it's not a secret. The problem is most people can't get past the surface. So that's my take on the whole thing, is that it's either willful ignorance or gross misunderstanding, because people are either not watching the specials at all, or they're simply seeing clips and extrapolating for in the worst ways possible, or they're just uncomfortable with the fact that some of what Dave is actually saying, whether it's not exactly what they want to hear, there's truth in it, and it's uncomfortable. And it's easier to put Dave in a box and attack the box than it is to attack Dave's ideas. And that's true for a lot of different topics when it comes to a lot of groups within, whether you believe cancel culture exists or whatnot, whatever. That's all very much a thing.
Exists. Oh,
yeah, but you know what I mean. So that's the problem with it in general, is that it's ultimately groups that do these things, not just the transgendered, you know, this whole discussion, but just in general, and even just in other discussions. Well, it's human nature. It's easier to attack somebody when they are taken out of context of being an individual and a person that you have a shared experience with, put them in a box, label it, and then attack the box and the label instead of actually contending with the ideas and the person that also is going through life and having the shared human experience. And that's what this whole special was about. And the fact that he managed to do 3 specials that more or less come to this head, and the whole thing being one punchline at the very end, and I won't say what it is, but he did 3 specials that build to this, and there's a punchline that is literally one joke for the whole 3 specials, is genius. And whether you like Dave for his comedy or not, in my opinion, it's hard not to appreciate him as a writer and a storyteller, and as a more everyday philosopher that also makes it funny and therefore more easily digestible to take on some of the more crazy fucking topics, which, whether people like to admit it or not, while it isn't all of comedy, that is ultimately what a lot of comedy is about taking the shit that society doesn't like to look at and making it funny so that discussions can happen, and kind of taking the hard edge off of those topics.
Yeah, I just think a lot of some people's issues alongside that, right? We kind of go through the same thing in role play. Is, you know, a lot of people use the term, it's just role play, right? And a lot of the times, I shouldn't say a lot, but kinda, it's not just role play. You know, sometimes sometimes you hear in people's voices, it's not their character telling you to go fuck yourself, you know, or at least you get that feeling. Whether you're right about that feeling or not. And I also think I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, just a little bit, because, you know, when it comes to Dave Chappelle, it's not just comedy. In fact, no. I think with Dave Chappelle, it's 80% philosophical.
Yeah.
And his thoughts and ideologies on the way the world is on many subjects, not just the transgender side of things.
I mean, the entire Dave Chappelle show was about the racial experience.
It's all I know this is what Dave does, right? And he's like, when he first started his career, before, I would say, you know, before he went off to Africa or whatever, and saying no to $50 million, when he came back, he basically stopped doing what he thought, you know, the big heads upstairs wanted. And now he is going to do his own thing. He was going to be owned by nobody. And you can't cancel Dave Chappelle. I mean, he's just Dave Chappelle. If there's one comedian out there that can say whatever the fuck he wants to say, this is the guy, right? Like, there's not a lot of comedians that can get away with what Dave gets away with. And I say that not as if he is doing something egregiously wrong, but I do feel like Dave, and it isn't even just in this case, but in some of the other stuff that he's done, he is very opinionated. And some of his thoughts are a bit on the extreme side. So, I get.
Oh, sure. Like, I don't agree with everything Dave Chappelle says at all,
Of course
obviously.
not. I'm not saying you do.
No. He is opinionated as hell.
Oh, he's very opinionated, right? And, there's a lot of truth to some of the things that Dave Chappelle says. It's the way he says it that makes him so genius on how he can construct his stories to really capture an audience and get them thinking about it. Oh, and in the meantime, laugh about it as well. That's a real talent. I'm not going to get into the things that I liked or didn't like about it. I will say this with The Closure. I could have done without this one, personally. I'm a massive Dave Chappelle fan. Like, I saw this the same day it came out. Like, Kayla and I sat up and watched. We had some laughs. But I also found myself wishing that he would get on to the next topic. I became very run down with this this line of storytelling because I heard it before from him, right? And I felt like in this one, he was defending himself more than what he was.
This was. I think that's why it's called The Closure.
Closure.
And how he ends it and he says, "I'm done."
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So he had an agenda here.
Yeah.
And I felt like he could have done this on a podcast. He could have done this.
But then he wouldn't get paid that Netflix money.
Well, I mean,
and he signed a deal. He signed a deal to do 3 shows, right?
That's true. Yeah,
because when you say that I think I could have done without it. I personally, when I was watching it, I think Dave Chappelle could have done without it, but he had 3 shows.
Yeah.
And so he decided to just take that topic and do 3 shows.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the show sucked. It's Dave Chappelle. I can listen to this guy talk about fucking anything. But I will say, as a big Dave Chappelle fan, I became very tired of his jokes about the trans community and the stuff. It's like, dude, it's like you're almost asking for this again. I understand, like, I get what you're doing. But like, of course there were some laughs in there. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't laugh. But there were some things where I was like, I thought, and that's all I'll say about it. Because I don't want to get fucking mixed up in this fucking shit and fucking, I'm not here to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. It's just like, you got to fucking walk on eggshells with every goddamn thing you say these days. You can't even, you know where I'm going with this, right? So,
that's why Dave is one of the few people that can do it, right? And why it's kind of important that Dave is still capable of doing that, because they're like, maybe him and maybe Bill Burr and perhaps some people might argue Cat Williams are like 3 people that can still get away with saying damn near anything, and because of who they are,
I don't even think Bill Burr can. I don't think Cat Williams can. I actually think Dave Chappelle.
He's at the top for sure.
Maybe Eddie Murphy are like the 2 comedians. And I guess Joe Rogan to an extent, because he's so influential, right? That like he can get away with this stuff.
And he has said some shit.
He does, right? And he does, like, on a regular basis, right? Because once again, Joe Rogan is very opinionated as well, right? Whether you agree with him or you don't, right? And he's a comedian. But Joe will just tell you these things without a joke, right? He'll tell you how he feels, right? And some people don't like that and others do. But yeah, no, I mean, hey, it was a special. I could have done without it. I would have preferred, it was like an hour long, and I think probably 35 minutes of it was quite literally this subject. And I was already I had already gotten, I already heard what he's had to say before, and I felt like we were hearing sort of the same jokes, but told a little bit differently and a little bit more up to date with some of his experiences. And I'm not saying it was an awful special by any means. It's the same thing where he did a special after, or did a comedy thing after George Floyd was murdered. you know, he basically did social commentary on that too, and you know, he was in a lot of pain, and you can hear it. You know, it was another special I could have done without, because I just felt like
that one was for that one was for Dave doing Dave though. Like
Yeah,
that wasn't Netflix paying
it
Dave
wasn't
to
a
do
Netflix thing. No,
yeah,
that was Dave Chappelle.
That was just Dave doing
Chappelle,
Dave. Yeah.
Which I feel like this is what he should have said this without Netflix. Like this is like a bit that I don't really think took him a whole lot of time to construct. You know, I felt like Dave went on stage and just, you know, had obviously some things that he wanted to say and some punchlines that he wanted to do, and he did. But I felt like, you know, I could have done without this one. I'm not saying I fully agree with one side and I fully agree with another side, but I also do kind of see where a group may go, when are you going to stop? Like, you know, why are you still doing this? Like, didn't you just do this on your last one? Why are you continuing to do it? And that's where it starts to feel like maybe a little bit of punching down, where it's just like, dude, like how, like, I know you're defending yourself here, but like, we'll see. I mean, obviously he said it's a closure and he's done. So hopefully he's actually done, because if he comes out with another one and he does this again, I'm actually just not going to support it, because as a viewer, I'm just like, dude, I've heard this already. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen this bit now a couple of times. So let's move on to some other topics. Like, you know, give me something else that's controversial and hit me with that, right? I'm over this sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's my honest opinion on this special.
Yeah. I agree that I think, you knowing Dave, I'd be shocked if he went back on what he said at the end of it and went on and did more. I think he's truly well and done with it. And so, yeah, I think almost, if it wasn't for the fact that it was like a signed thing with Netflix, I think that this would have been a 30-minute special instead of an hour and a half or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
There was a lot of filler there. Yeah. And there were times where I was watching it where I thought that he was even pointing out that he knew some of what he was saying was filler.
Yeah.
And he was kind of breaking fourth wall about it in a few places, but you know, he was beholden to the. Yeah.
I do agree with one of your points where you said a lot of people looked at surface, right?
Yeah,
there was a lot in there. Doesn't mean just because you look deeper, you're going to agree with it. You know, not everybody's going to agree with it.
Yeah,
he was telling a story. He was making a point. Whether or not you agree with it, that is on the individual. But I do see where both sides come from. I truly do. And I'm not saying that to stay down the middle. I do see where both sides are. And I do believe that comedy should be comedy. And there is nobody or any group or anything that is safe from comedy, because he has blasted, you know, every community you can fucking think of, bro. He has blasted everybody. It's not like he is strictly picking on it, but I feel like he has been sitting in one dome a little bit too fucking long, which is starting to feel like he's got an even, you know, that he's really.
Well, if that last story is any indication, I think some of it, other than being beholden to the 3 special thing and the times and all that stuff, I think he's got a horse in the game from a personal perspective that he probably feels, and I think that has gone a long way to contributing to why he sat on this for so long, and whether it was by design or otherwise, you know, he held on to that story that he had at the end of this special until the very last minute to give that out. And part of me, I don't know, because I don't know Dave well enough, because it's hard to get a read on comedians in this regard. But it was to me, it sort of felt like one of two things. One, it was a defense of Dave Chappelle for sure. It was Dave defending Dave. And on the other hand, I felt like it was, especially if somebody is the type of individual to walk away from $50 million and go back to fucking Africa for as long as he did, whatever. I feel like he's somebody who would also, and this is what I felt when I watched him tell this story, he didn't want to have to tell this story, because when you tell the story, then it really looks like it's like saying, I can't be racist because I got black friends.
Yeah.
And I don't think he necessarily wanted to tell the story, but it really and truly to him might feel like not only is it something that he's partially using in defense of himself, but also it's the best example because it's part of their community as well of a bridge between him and the community in which he's at odds with. Or it's not even the whole community; it's a portion of the community. So between him and a portion of that community,
there's always going to be pockets of every dude. I'm gonna just be honest. I'm black, right? So like I have family members that are pretty fucking hardcore, like you know, like
Black Panther,
fucking hardcore. You know, some
the white folks are holding us down.
Those right?
Yeah.
Like I know family and extended family that are very, very like that. And there's always going to be pockets of groups and pockets of things that just take things to an absolute extreme, or there is no breaking their, you know, and a lot of that comes from personal, deep-seated events and things that has affected individuals. And a lot of the time, you know, you need to be educated or whatnot, right? Like, it
can be hard to break a cycle like that.
It's very, very tough, and especially when those individuals only really surround themselves with those type of individuals, and so it's a confirmation bias all the time, and it's hard to get a different perspective.
And think about that: is that most of them are probably on the older side of the spectrum, right?
Oh, they definitely are. Yeah.
So think about that when you're talking about surrounding yourself with people that have its confirmation bias. Think about social media for young people now in some of the movements that we've been seeing, and just how exacerbated confirmation bias can become, and nobody is safe from it. Everyone has their own social media silo, and how much of a self-fulfilling fucking circle that can all be when you have the power to block people and choose not to interact with them or have discourse with them because you don't want to, because it's uncomfortable, or you just don't feel like you're going to get through to them, and so you just block them. And then you get to a point where it's reductive to the point where you're only seeing that one side, you're not seeing anything else.
Can you
and yeah, so like when people ask me like, why do you constantly get in like fucking long conversations and arguments with people on Twitter? Just block and fucking remove them and fuck them. And there's merit to that in that, you know, it does.
What I do.
It adds it obviously adds to the stress in my day. But on the other hand, I try to like I've blocked. I don't even know if I've blocked anyone on Twitter before. Maybe like one person or two people in the 8 years I've been on the platform. And I do it specifically because I'm trying to my best as a person, as best as I can anyway, to not put myself intentionally in too deep of a silo. I still want to see, even if it annoys me, I see it on my timeline, I'm like, fuck! You know, I want to I'd rather look at it and go, fuck! Than look down and just see shit that I'm like, oh, yeah, me! I just
fucking block stupid, man. You know what? Like at the end of the day, if it's gonna make me sit on Twitter for an hour and fucking fight with somebody, I got better things to do with my
and like Dave said, Twitter is not a real place.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like if I have a disagreement with you, like obviously, you know,
that's different.
It's different, right? It's different. Yeah. But if I'm dealing with some fucking troll on the internet, man, fuck you, dude. Just go fuck yourself, man. You know, I ain't not wasting my goddamn time. And I think people should do that with Dave Chappelle as well if they don't like his stuff. They should just not watch it. But if you're not gonna not watch it,
don't talk on it.
You probably shouldn't talk on it. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
Yeah.
And now it's time for
tech support. Fuck, I thought we were.
No, we're just gonna grab a couple small ones here because we had a couple of lengthy topics today. Danjum is back, Mr. Black, with some more asking for top threes. What's your top three PS1 games this time?
Final Fantasy VII comes in at number uno. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
It gets difficult.
I am going to go with NHL 2000. Crazy. Might be the first sports title I've ever. I'm pretty sure it's NHL 2000 on the PS1. I'm almost certain. NHL.
Oh, did you watch Squid Game yet? Or
I
you
didn't
not?
yet. No,
okay.
no.
So we'll talk about that when you're done watching that.
Yeah, NHL 2000. Played so much of that. So I'm gonna go with that one. And that's not my number 2. I would put that on the lower end of the list. And then number 3. Oh man. And you guys put me on the spot here. I would have said Resident Evil, but I really enjoyed that. I played that on the N64 when I first played it. Man, it's so long ago since I've played PS1 games. I'm trying to think of replayable games that I played a fuck ton of. You know, I think I'm actually going to go with Crash Bandicoot.
Good choice.
Yeah, because I really, really enjoyed Crash Bandicoot a lot when I was younger. Would that be my favorite now? No, but as a kid, it's a good time. Oh, you know what? Let me get rid of NHL, man. I feel like I can't put a sports game up there. I'm going with Dino Crisis.
Oh, shit, there's so many.
Because you know what? I replayed Dino Crisis like a year ago, and the shit still holds, man. It's like a Resident Evil game. Shit is still good.
There's not a lot, like, there's a lot of PS1 games I like a lot, but there's not a lot that I've played multiple times. So, like...
I mean, where's Final Fantasy 7? You must be Final Fantasy 8's got to be on there,
Final
right?
Fantasy 8 is there for me, because of between 7, 8, 9, 8 was my favorite, so it's Final Fantasy 8. Legend of Dragoon.
Oh, shit, I forgot about that one. That's a good one. Man, most of my PS1 experience have been RPGs, JRPGs, and games like Dino Crisis, Resident Evil,
Parasite
Alone
Eve.
in the Dark, Parasite Eve, even the Effect game. I got it down there. Came out 1 and 2. The cartoony type.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
Somebody will say it in chat.
Yeah, I guess
I love all those games.
Like if I had to reduce it down, honestly, I'm probably gonna I'd probably say Resident Evil Director's Cut.
Fear Effect, there it is.
Fear Effect, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Legend of Dragoon, Final Fantasy VIII would probably be like my 3 in any fucking order. But then there's so many, like Galarians, Parasite Eve, the Dino Crisis games, Alone in the Dark, fucking Cool Borders. I play a shitload of Cool Borders.
It's a good game. Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk, although that really came to its own at like on the N64. That was like the prime location for that. But yeah, I mean there's a lot, but most of them were JRPGs for me, honestly. Yeah. So like the holy trinity of PS1 RPGs for me, JRPGs for me is Final Fantasy VIII, Legend of Dragoon, Legend of Legaia are like my 3 different properties. And then there's like really weird ones like Azure Dreams is another game that Brian and I played a lot that I really liked that was on the PS1. And then there's things like, Jesus,
Dragon
Metal Gear
Ball
Solid,
GT, Metal Gear,
fucking Siphon Filter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff, but yeah, I'll say those 3 are probably the primo. D-Neves, baseball hats, bill forward, backward, or no hat altogether?
Forward.
Depends on the application for me. So if I'm golfing or some shit, I can't wear a fucking hat. It drives me crazy. I'm constantly feeling like I'm going to hit the bill of my hat, whether it's front or backwards, doesn't matter. I feel like my club's going to hit my fucking hat somewhere. If I'm outside going for a walk, forward so I can like shield my eyes from the sun. But if I'm doing like a lot of work, like if I'm doing manual labor stuff, so yard work or painting, especially painting specifically, it's backwards because I use the bill to protect my neck from the sun while I'm like painting whatever fucking house or whatever that I'm doing. Because if you get your bill forward, you're just inevitably gonna fucking run your shit into whatever you're painting, and it's a pain in the ass. So just put that shit backwards, protect your neck. So it depends, but most of the time it's either no hat or bill forward. I would say for me. Logan, my dad and brother are visiting Halifax right now for a week. Any must-dos you would recommend for them? I think Burger Week is this week, so there's a couple places you could go for a decent burger this week, like Daryl's downtown on Queen Street is probably the best burger in the city or close to it. But everyone puts on a burger during Burger Week. Lots of restaurants.
Make sure you got your.
Get your vaccination documentation ready for that. Which you would already have to get into the province in the first place. And then we got lucky. It's been late, but we had a couple of cold enough nights now. The fall colors are starting to pop off. So you can go to Blommen and Lookoff is a really nice spot in the fall where you can go up on top and you can see down over top of a large part of the valley. And that's some really nice views there. And that's not too far outside of the city. It's not too far of a drive, so something like that might be nice. Other than that, most of the stuff that's really nice this time of year, because of the time of year, is outside the city. So, like, a lot of your shit is going to be, like, sightseeing outside of the city. So, Peggy's Cove is always an easy recommendation, especially if you're not somebody that lives close to the water and you don't see the ocean. Peggy's Cove is normally a relatively popular spot. Just don't stand on the black rocks like all the other idiots. You know they're thinking about building a fucking like observation deck to try and like curtail people from wanting to go to the black rocks.
You know what, man? I just think let natural
Darwin win,
take its course, right? I'm never for people getting hurt, but if there are signs all over the place that are telling you.
And people have died there.
People have died or seriously hurt themselves. Do not go on the fucking slippery ass black rocks. There are signs everywhere. Stop.
Because then people have to friggin' like.
And there's so many places to be down there.
And you don't get a better shot.
Yes,
like you're not getting a better photograph being that close to the fucking water.
Like, oh my god, dude, stop the madness.
Yeah. People. Well, a lot of it is people that don't live next to the ocean and they have no appreciation for how strong water is.
They don't know.
Water is the strongest force on this fucking planet. Full stop. Anything like you could. I mean, imagine this: if you see container ships and they're hundreds of meters long and they're carrying thousands of containers, and they go out in the ocean and they get their shit pumped, your tiny ass standing on rocks in a storm on Peggy's Cove next to the fucking ocean.
Yeah, and they're still gonna do it. You could have the world's greatest fucking observatory, and people are still gonna go down there, and they're still gonna take their dumb fucking selfies and get swept away by the rocks and get all kinds of fucked up. That's what's gonna happen. Don't do that if you go there.
Last one. Henry Chesmore, describe your favorite pizza.
Man, what's with all the pizza questions, man?
Oh, lots of pizza. Well, we know that by default it doesn't have pineapple on it unless it's free.
Yeah. My favorite type of pizza, I mean, it's evolved. When I was young, pepperoni. I mean, it was just basic ass pepperoni. I didn't appreciate all of the finer ingredients that go into making a nice, enjoyable pizza. I was a basic bitch. I was a kid. I mean, if you're a kid, it's cheese or pepperoni. I always went with the pepperoni. Then I would say as I got older, I would go for the one that was the most filling. Because I was hungry all the time. So we're talking like Supreme, Meat Lovers, like something that looked like it was you were shoveling ingredients into your mouth on a pizza slice. So that was like my teen years into my early 20s. Now I enjoy a pizza with chicken on it. So like barbecue chicken pizza, like a chicken parm pizza, spicy chicken pizza. I just like me some little bits of chicken on there. And I would say that's probably my number one. If the person I was with didn't really care for that stuff, then I'm probably just gonna be the works, you know. I'm not picking anything off, and I'm just gonna eat it. But I do love me a little bit of chicken on my pizza.
By
the way, I'll still eat all of the other ones.
Yeah, there's
pizza, right?
No discrimination.
There's no discrimination on pizza. If it's there, I'm gonna eat it.
I'm the opposite. I haven't changed really. When I hit high school, or like just out of high school, like first year university, I moved from largely just pepperoni into the pizza that I've kept forever and a day, and it's pepperoni, mushrooms, green pepper, bacon.
I'd eat the fuck out of that
every time. It doesn't matter. Thick crust, thin crust, medium crust, stuffed crust, doesn't matter. The toppings are those every time. And then the secondary pizza that if I'm really feeling like it, I don't want to fully shit myself, but I might be down for shit myself a little bit. Donair pizza.
Oh yeah. That's like a Donair pizza. Whenever I have a pizza party, there's always at least one Donair pizza, one large Donair pizza.
You don't want I can't eat like 4 pieces like I would normally, but give me one piece of really hot, because you can't eat cold Donair pizza. It's terrible.
No, you got to heat it up. Yeah, you got to heat it up. It's got to be
one slice sauce.
Just give me a cup of Donair sauce. Fucking slide that shit on there and take the bite.
Yes,
I fucks with that all day.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that not everybody fucks with it. So you just get one large, and the ones that enjoy it are fucking. When they open up the pizzas, they go, "Oh, Donair."
Yeah,
and they just quickly go in and grab a slice. It's one of those, man.
It is. It's a showstopper.
And you know what? I'm gonna be the guy.
But no tomato. Here's a caveat: no tomato or onion on my Donair pizza, because the tomatoes are sliced and they get watery and fucking weird.
Yeah. It makes it like squishy and it's gross.
Yeah.
I'm a no tomato guy. I do fucks with the onions. I have a confession. You know what I don't fuck with? And even if it's there, I would say there is a 20% chance that I grab some.
That's low.
20% chance. And the reason why it's 20 is because there's only a couple of places that I ever have had really good of this, where I go, you know what? Let me grab a little bit of that. It's rare. It's rare. All right. You ready for it?
My body is ready.
Garlic fingers. I don't really fucks with garlic fingers. There is only one or two times, one or two places where I go, you know what? Grab me a handful of that garlic finger. Because most garlic fingers that I have just taste like bad plain pizza dough with a little bit of fucking garlic brushed on top. But really good garlic fingers, fucking fantastic. Fan-fucking-tastic. The big fluffy. You know what makes decent garlic fingers? Is that fucking chain, the 5-minute place, the Hot and Ready. They have like they actually have pretty good fucking garlic sticks and garlic things like that, where it's nice. But most mom and pop pizza places make dog shit garlic fingers.
It's because they're buying them wholesale. They're not making the garlic fingers themselves, right? The garlic fingers are an afterthought. They're a side dish.
Yeah.
Right? So they just they go to the wholesaler in the city and they buy garlic fingers en masse, and then they pop the frozen ass garlic fingers onto the pizza fucking tray.
Man. That ain't
and it's bad.
It's real bad.
But I fucks with garlic fingers all day if it's good garlic. I eat so many garlic fingers. I've been known that if a place got good garlic fingers, I'll order it, and then I make the mistake. I eat too many garlic fingers, and then I don't get to eat any pizza because I just eat garlic. But just like Donair, garlic fingers have to be hot.
Yes.
They have to be.
Have to.
They do not do well, just like Donair pizza, they do not do well cold. They have to be hot enough that the cheese is still stretching.
Yep.
The moment you pick a garlic finger up and that cheese isn't coming with you, and you've got to like
cardboard,
you got to combat it with a knife,
it's over. It's expired.
It's done.
It's expired. Feed them to the plebeians at 4 a.m. that are drunk.
It's the anti-alcohol food at that point.
Yeah, I ain't having it. So yeah, that's some people live and die by the garlic fingers. I am not. I will gladly hold a space for an extra slice of pizza in my belly before I dig into the garlic fingers, unless they are fucking good garlic fingers. Then I'm in a little bit of trouble. But
don't fuck with garlic fingers either, where you start doing weird shit like sprinkling bacon on it. Like, bacon goes on a lot of shit. Garlic fingers is not one of those places.
Just want my regular ass garlic fingers.
Just give
I
me.
don't need special.
You know what goes on garlic fingers? You know what the ingredients of garlic fingers are, Jeff? Garlic and fingers. Those are the two things that are in garlic fingers. There's no bacon in that list.
No.
There's nothing. It's garlic and fingers. And you mess that list up. You add a third item or a fourth. God help you, a fifth.
It's not garlic fingers
now
anymore.
It's just pizza that just so happens to have garlic on it. You got 5 toppings on your garlic fingers. That's called pizza. You're not even eating garlic fingers anymore. What the fuck is wrong with you? Garlic fingers is garlic and fingers.
It's like getting lettuce on your Donair. Stop the madness.
Stop. What are you doing? No.
Stop.
Nobody wants that. It's like wet and limp.
Yeah, stop.
Nobody wants that shit.
Stop it.
Nobody wants your whiskey dick lettuce. Get
No.
that shit the fuck out of here.
Get off. I'm eating a man's meal right now. All right? Get that lettuce off this now. I ain't a rabbit. I'm here to eat lots of meat and get a lot of calories in my system and feel like shit in the morning.
It's just to bring it back around to Dave Chappelle. It's like the skit where he talked about grape juice. It's like, what the fuck is juice? Give me that purple stuff. Sugar, water, purple.
Purple.
That's it.
That's it.
Sugar, water, purple.
That's the title.
That's the title of the podcast now.
There it is, man.
That's it. Garlic and fingers. It's the 2 fucking ingredients. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week for another Technical Alpha. Thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed yourselves. Share this with somebody if you think it's a podcast they might enjoy. Hit us up on iTunes or whatever and give us a rating if they allow you to do that these days. God only knows. Patreon.com/LikeTV to financially support the podcast and keep this bad boy going for as long as humanly possible. Until next week, thank you once again for stopping by. Stay safe out there, and until next time, peace!
Peace!